In a grand hall, Sasha joyfully clings to Heiss, celebrating her breakthrough and blurting that she did it. Her blessing is Sword Master. She can't stop grinning, calling it amazing, then pushes Heiss to get his blessing next, promising that the moment he does, they'll be off on adventures together. He nods along, grinning inside because this feels like the perfect leap toward their dreams. Then the scene crashes back to a gloomy past, when younger Heiss and Sasha stood soaked in pouring rain by two graves, and Sasha softly called out to her lost parents. That tear-streaked Heist memory keeps replaying, right as they swear a vow, will become the strongest, because they'll rescue everyone and make sure nobody else has to endure the same brutal fate they lived through. Back in the present, the old official beckons Heist over and calls his name for his turn, then drops the bomb. Every 12-year-old in this world gets a blessing, a one-of-a-kind power pulled straight from sacred text. Heist rushes toward the massive skill encyclopedia, desperate to hunt down his own blessing in its pages. He slaps his hand on the book, and boom, it explodes into a blinding burst of light. The pages whip and spin at impossible speeds, then slam to stop on one entry that forms right in front of him. Weapon Master ****. His mind goes blank as confusion takes over. What in the world is that supposed to mean? The lights dim and the official Jace demands to know what power just appeared. Heist blurts out, "Weapon Master." Jace frowns, he's never even heard of it. Then Sasha steps in, just as confused, saying, "If you can't use any energy, how could that blessing even work?" Worry sweeps over her face. 2 years later, the story rips to a rugged mountain trail. There, the older Heist everyone calls the *** sacred Heist *** labors under a porter's pack, collapsing into breathless pants as he fights his way along behind his adventuring partner. Reynolds, the party's spooked vice leader, swings back with a relaxed grin and tells them to take a breather. "We'll be there soon," while Heist stays hunched, gasping for air. From across the way, Sasha locks eyes on the scene. Reynolds snaps around and tells her they've got to keep pushing forward. Hai finally breaks the silence, begging for a short rest with a tired sigh. Sasha nods right away, saying they'll rest for half an hour, then hit the road again. While she stayed silent, Reynolds barked her name, his voice slicing through the jeers aimed at Highs. Because right there, Robin, Tycoon, and the elf-eared healer Piazala mocked him for crumpling under all that heavy luggage, sneering that anyone with no blessing is just dead waste. She stayed silent as Reynolds kept talking under his breath, warning that this failure might be the one thing that stops their party from ranking up, and even though her face didn't change, her eyes turned sharp at what he was implying. Right before she could answer, Highs hauled himself upright and flashed Robin this unsettling little smile. He insisted the bags were the only way he could help, thanked her for everything, and told her to rest, yet his forced cheer still left Robin stunned and speechless for a moment. From across the room, he watched them and felt that familiar frustration creep up fast, because 2 years had already crashed by since his blessing. In that time, he and Sasha had built this party and grown like crazy, but still, his own blessing sat dormant, refusing to wake. Right beside him, Reynolds pressed Sasha on her leniency, hinting she was being too soft. Their progress split so hard it got officially logged. Sasha smashed it and snagged the coveted A-rank solo, but their party, Sacred, got stuck at B-rank. Right before they set off, the party's armored tank clapped a steady hand on High's shoulder, telling him to stop overthinking and grab some rest. High mumbled thanks, but inside his fist tightened, haunted by the fact that he still couldn't figure out what his blessing even meant, and that he only felt like dead weight. Sasha clocked the storm in his eyes and whipped her gaze back at him, concern darkening her face. Then Reynolds strode up with a cider in hand, saying Heist looked wiped out and pressing, "So how are you really holding up?" Then he snapped his eyes forward to the road ahead, confidence pouring into his voice as he boldly said he believed they'd be fine. Reynolds tried to calm her with his confidence, but it didn't land, so he pressed harder, straight up demanding whether she'd finally decided, and with a heavy heart and a shaken face, she admitted in a quiet voice that she had. Her choice locked in the next move. This crew stood right before the Serpent's Den, staring into a gaping nightmare, their iron-ranked emotion quest blazing in their faces. Reynolds fired off the plan. Sasha would charge first as the vanguard, Reynolds would hold the entrance, Typhoon and Robin would back them up, and Piazzala would stay locked in as the rear healer. And as soon as the orders hit the air, Heist hung back behind everyone, his job completely missing. He watches the party gear up to march into the cavern, and his voice cracks with doubt. "Sasha, am I really just supposed to wait here?" Reynolds snaps, fist clenched in rage, telling him to stay put while the tension hangs in the air, and then Sasha calls the order. Lock into formation. Their whole group strategy hinges on special powers called blessings, and one sharp expert spills the secret. The Typhoon blessing lets you unlock teleportation magic, so the chosen guy can whip out a specific magical technique that's the linchpin of their entire plan. Reynolds breaks it down. Philip's biggest blessing is Sage, and it lets him throw way more than just healing support magic. Then the whole crew lines up right before that blazing entrance to the den, and Reynolds finally shouts the last order. Advance! Their charge instantly slams to a stop when a monstrous queen cobra explodes into the scene. She rockets forward with blinding speed, her fangs smashing the cavern floor like a hammer, and Sasha barely dives out of the way in time. Instead of hunkering down, she snaps her hand into motion, set up for a brutal offensive counter. She plants her blade against the beast, face set like stone, and vows it will drop right here, right now. From the entrance, Heiswatch freezes, watching in awe as her already stunning swordsmanship surges into something even greater through her blessing, and he realizes her final move is the flawless marriage of her skill and her enchanted blade. The fight erupts. Sasha rockets through the sky, sword blazing overhead, ready to smash everything with one brutal strike. She's channeling magic through her gear, and that sage-class blessing isn't just given to her, she's mastered it. The serpent strikes back with brutal force, and its tail slams through the party's main shield, shattering it instantly. Reynolds yells in pure panic, while Piazzala nearby scoffs and mutters how that so-called sage let the monster smash through their defenses with. With their main defense ripped away, Reynolds' confidence crumples into raw panic. I'm done for. He yells as the rest of the party gets swarmed by smaller serpents, and the trap snaps shut on them. His focus clung to his comrades' desperate fight, then he didn't even feel the danger creeping up behind him. A monstrous serpent bursts from the shadows, eyes burning with pure malice, and he spins at the last second, eyes blown wide in shock as it strikes. As the serpent shot forward, his mind snapped back to a past quest. He vividly remembered apologizing to the party after that brutal chaos, then trying to explain he just wanted to contribute better. All his hard work only got Sasha's fire unleashed. She snapped at him to stop acting like a useless clown, furious as ever. While the rest of the party argued over who'd take the spoils, he stood there alone, surrounded by the wreckage of their fight. He stared in confusion as the others huddled and debated. Then Piazzala demanded answers about the remaining materials, but Sasha waved it off, saying the Serpent Queen's core was all the proof they needed to finish the quest. Pinned under Piazzala's impatient stare, he shoveled the loot in until his fingers hit a heavy, unlabeled tome. He froze for half a second, panic sparking, then yanked it into his bag fast before she could clock it. All alone, he tore into the book, diagrams of a weird weapon called a desert eagle, plus unfamiliar characters, and a strange, electric feeling hit him, like the very same rush he felt the day he first got his blessing. He rushed to show the party his discovery when they finally gathered later, but they were already packing to bolt. Reynolds shouted his name, and Heis snapped his eyes up from the book, hope surging as the whole crew flooded up to his table. His hope got smashed in a heartbeat. Before he even opened his mouth, Sasha cut him down with icy finality. You should leave this party. Those words slammed into him, and total disbelief swallowed him whole. He turned to Sasha, begging her, did you forget the promise we made to each other? She turned away, jaw set, and I could tell she'd never actually forgotten, especially since the party was seconds from hitting air rank. She'd already decided he was nothing but a disposable birdie. She slid a pouch onto the table, his severance, and said the truth. Her dream was to stand in the strongest party, but she'd realized she no longer belonged there. Reynolds just huffed out a dismissive apology, flipped a tiny pouch of coins onto a nearby barrel, and watched him go, leaving him stunned as the money basically paid for the trip home. Then the vice leader leaned in, planted a hand on the high shoulder with a smug grin, and vowed he'd make the party's fame blast all the way to his faraway hometown. He said it straight, no sugarcoating. Heists were done, and there was no place for them in their ranks anymore. He finally found his voice, then swung his eyes past Reynolds and to the others, demanding to know if he'd really been waiting for this exact moment, because Reynolds suddenly looked shocked by the accusation. Before anyone could speak, Philip blew up, rage spilling everywhere, as he fought tooth and nail against Heist's expulsion, insisting Heist had a blessing unlike any other, one that could someday make him a master. The thickly armored member snapped back that with every step up in rank, their standards had to get tougher too. And while that argument raged, Sasha stayed frozen, silent as stone. Philip's protests raged on. He kept grilling Reynolds' judgment and demanding to know what would happen to the heist, while Reynolds dug in and refused to budge on the move. Reynolds shrugged off the outburst, snapped his icy stare back to the heist, and with fake politeness demanded, would you mind leaving the party? He dropped the money pouch onto the table and called it a sweet little token of their goodwill. Then, from behind him, the heist kid waved it off and snapped that he didn't need it. Suddenly, Heist's com-no detonated into pure fury. He spun on his heels, swatted the pouch aside, and screamed that he didn't need their money. Then he declared he was leaving right now, clenching his fist as a vow burned in him. He'd never quit. His eyes flared with stubborn resolve as he spat out his final, bitter promise. He would never, ever turn into a quitter like Sasha. Sasha's eyes went wide as his furious accusation landed, blaming her for using teammates to claw her way to her goals, while the words hung in the sudden, choking silence. As she just stared blank and frozen, Reynolds stepped in and spoke her name with calm confidence, while behind them Heis's voice still roared, swearing he'd never, ever give up. He dropped to one knee in front of the quiet girl, demanded to know if this was really what she wanted, reassured her it was all okay, and insisted she only needed one thing, Heis to die. Sasha stared down and said it was no trouble, then apologized for forcing him to clean up the mess. Later that night, beneath a crescent moon, Reynolds told Sasha it didn't matter if she wanted to hate him for what he'd done, because all she did was spit out his name, like it burned. 2 months slammed by, and now he was alone, when the heist finally let out a tired sigh. He strode through the roaring hall with a huge basket strapped to his back when an adventurer at a nearby table clocked him, pointed him out, and bragged that he'd just wiped out 30 goblins. Now he'd have to push even harder. You shrug them off, but the whispers keep chasing you. Everywhere you turn, other adventurers trade cruel jokes about that kid from the sacred party who got booted, mocking him for leaving the drama behind to pick flowers and play by himself. Their scornful words hit him like a slap. His face tightened, his fist clenched, and he stewed over the idea that all the brat had done was poison the party's name, or maybe his teammates had never really liked him in the first place. On a wooden pier, 2 sets of footsteps pound in perfect sync, ornate armored boots clack with crisp confidence, while plain leather steps whisper softer behind them, and Sasha snaps her hand up and their synchronized steps stop dead. Heis freezes mid-stride, eyes widening. Reynolds, Piazzala, and Robin all stare from just a short distance, and when Sasha says his name, the seriousness in her voice hits like a warning. He stares back, and the moment she gives him that order, shock rips across his face. She demands he head south to the Dazara kingdom and hunt down the Damplins, because that's where the white medicinal herbs grow, the exact ingredients he needs to brew recovery potions. The air feels heavy with that request, and he blurts out doubts. What's with the task, and how in the world is he supposed to handle that mountain of herbs she just listed? While he's still staring at the order, the rest of the party is already packing up and heading out. Sasha just drops a quick goodbye, then turns and walks away. Reynolds shoots Sasha a smirk and asks if Heis will actually track down the herbs for them. Then Heis watches him leave and realizes those white herbs are probably worth a fortune once the party sells them, and that he's been sent on an errand. As she turns away, Sasha's lips curl into a soft, knowing smile, and she's dead certain he'll pull it off. Her silent confidence hits him like a spark, so he clenches the paper with her instructions, knowing the destination is way out there, yet his resolve doesn't bend because he's going. By the next day, his journey drags him into damp, uneasy lands. He climbs a hill, stops dead, and his breath locks in his chest. Ahead, a sea of pristine white flowers stretches forever, and the sheer beauty knocks the words right out of him. Stunned by the sight, he wades into the sea of blossoms and kicks off his job, carefully plucking herbs and sliding them into a basket, while quietly realizing the rest of the party isn't beside him. Even alone with the job on his shoulders, gratitude hits him hard. He looks up and flashes a real smile, thinking, I have to thank them. After all, those shared dreams could turn into reality someday. He snaps his head over his shoulder, and a sudden shadow slams across the sea of white herbs, so big it feels impossible. He blurts out, what in the world could drop a shadow like that, and so fast? His eyes bulge with pure terror as a monstrous, bipedal dragon looms over him, dark, jagged scales and brutal, shark-like claws covering its body. Frozen in place, he can only stare up in shock at the massive beast that's just appeared before him in that quiet, peaceful field. The creature unleashes a deafening roar, and panic snaps in as he realizes that this thick maze of herbs gives him no clean way out, his legs shaking uncontrollably. He rips out a desperate scream as the dragon rockets toward him, its massive body swallowing the sky. The attack slams into him, and he rockets through the air. Then he crashes into the rocky ground with a brutal thud, the impact ripping a painful gasp from his lungs. From up high, Reynolds watches the whole thing with a frozen face, wondering why Sasha would send Heist to this exact spot, then deciding the kid is nothing but a nuisance to the party. Battered and bleeding, the Heist flashes Sasha's smiling face through his mind, and that hope instantly dies. Despair crashes in as he lies before the beast, wondering if he even deserves to live. With the dragon snarling for a final strike, a spark of defiance ignites in him. He clenches his teeth and swears to himself, this isn't how his life ends. His resolve hardens, he will not die. Then a strange, blazing light floods his eye, and a blinding blast erupts from his outstretched hand. Light gathers in his hands, twisting into a weird metallic beast, an M79 grenade launcher, and a primal instinct slams into him like a lightning strike, telling him with absolute certainty that he can wield it. The dragon bellows as it charges, shaking the air, and a brand new instinct snaps into place. Now he knows exactly what to do: squeeze the trigger and blast the explosive payload. With new grit in his chest, he hauls the heavy weapon up, locks his sights on the enemy, and one ruthless thought slices through his fear: I've got this. As the beast charges, everything goes wide open. He rips the trigger, and one blazing projectile slams straight into the dragon's throat. A massive explosion detonates from the dragon's core, blasting its head apart from the inside and firing a shockwave that slams Heist backward. Right after it all hits, the weapon in his grip starts melting into glowing light particles, and when he flicks his eyes to the weapon masterbook, panic blooms on his face. Was this the blessing it promised, or something that was never meant for this world at all? The adrenaline dies down, and the brutal truth of him surviving crashes into his body. He drops to his knees, sobbing out of sheer relief and terror, then snaps into this wild, unhinged laugh before he can even breathe. In his shattered mind, one memory snaps into focus: Sasha's smile, sweet as candy, while she condemns him and spits the word wretch like a death sentence. The memory slices through the chaos, sparks cold, burning fury, and suddenly he's clenching his face, eyes bulging with the sting of betrayal, swearing through clenched teeth, "I'll never forget me." Meanwhile, inside the guild hall, Guild Mastergeist watches from his office window. Then he claps Reynolds and Piazzala on the back, hailing their rise to A rank. Down in the courtyard, Reynolds throws his thanks into the air, with his whole party standing tall behind him. He takes a slow sip, then casually asks about Highs, like it's nothing, while dropping that he's been hearing disturbing rumors about the kid lately. Piazzala, right there beside Sasha, can't help but snap at his sudden change in tone. Then he lays it all out: those rumors aren't just cruel, they're darker than anyone thought. They didn't just abandon the boy, they meant to hurt him, and the gossip paints them as nothing but fake adventurers. Piazzala, stunned to the core, blurts out that he can't possibly think they'd commit something that brutal, yet the guild master just smirks, takes another sip, and shrugs that it's only what the whispers say. Then he leans in, his voice changing, and tells them straight up: the moment their sacred party fame keeps swelling, the heat, scrutiny, and wild gossip will rise right with it, so he clearly gets why they want that boy gone. When Sasha shoots him that questioning look, he leans in and explains everything. This kid is still chasing the dream they all used to talk about, building a real life for himself, and even reminds them that Heiss had already marked out great spots for gathering medicinal herbs. He freezes for a beat, takes another sip, then leans in and demands they remember, pointing them straight to where the Dazara desert lies. Then his calm facade cracks instantly. He slams his cup onto the table with a bone-rattling crash, roars at them for messing with him, and zeroes in on the wetlands like it's the whole point. His accusation slams into the room as he spills the horrifying truth: where the habitat is, a SS+ rank black dragon is lurking in the wetlands. Sasha's stomach drops. They sent those Heists straight to his certain death. The shock barely lands when a guild staff member bursts in, shouting for the guild master with urgent news. He snaps into action at the emergency, stands up, and barks at Sasha and the whole party to head to the main hall, right now. She obeys instantly, but fear twists her face with worry. Downstairs, the guild hall explodes in chaos. Then from the balcony, the sacred party lands the stairs in utter shock. Right in the middle of the frenzy stands Heiss, gripping the colossal severed head of the black dragon, his eyes locked on something he'll never back down from. His eyes blaze with fury as they snap to his former comrades, and he fires straight at them. Does their hatred run so deep they really meant to hurt him? The words hit like a threat, because he admits this isn't the first time he's heard poison like that, and yeah, it confirms what he feared all along. Sasha stares at his outburst, completely lost, and asks what he's talking about, until he snaps, brushing her confusion off as some act. Then he jabs a furious finger at the monstrous dragon head, bellowing for them to finally look at it, like it proves the fate they were always planning for him. And with venom in his voice, he remembers a time he'd actually believed they were being kind, before it all turned on him. His voice rips into a raw shout. He's had enough, and the betrayal has snapped him past his limit. With a fearless, unshakable glare, he vows in silence that he will become the strongest of them all. Right as he's about to act on his vow, a brutal burst of motion slams a nearby guild member straight to the floor. Then the heist master himself gets hit, crashing hard onto the stacked wooden planks. Sasha freezes, staring at his fallen body, shock cracking across her face as she blurts out his name. 2 years later, Heist strides up to a rough little counter, drops his coins, and tells the proprietor he's staying put for a whole month. With an S-rank badge now on his name, the old man behind the counter tells Heist to quit this rundown hole and move somewhere respectable. Yet with a tear burning in his eye, Heist shrugs it off and just asks for breakfast to be included. He sits back and thinks, nobody would ever guess an S-rank adventurer's really hold up here, because everyone now knows his real tag: S-rank adventurer Heist, the harbinger of darkness. Elsewhere, Sasha sits with a newspaper in hand, and the headline hits like a punch. Brynhild Valkyrie has finally been promoted to S rank, and now Sasha can't stop thinking about the fresh applications flooding in for her party. Lost in his own thoughts, he snapped his attention forward and charged up the tall stairs from the doorway, eyes burning with pure focus. The guild master of the Merchants Guild summoned him personally, Guy, an S-rank adventurer and the unarmed fighting king of the city, and once he takes a sip, Heis leans in and fires off. So, why'd you call me? Jays boasts that he heard Heis wiped out a mithril ogre all by himself, an S-plus monster, and he even says he's the one who taught the kid right, but Heis snaps back, asking when Jays ever earned the title of teacher. These monsters' strength gets sorted by a strict ranking system, starting at the lowest F and climbing all the way to SSS, but somehow, nobody has ever officially logged a creature at that top, final level. He stands staring at a towering mountain of harvested monster parts, and Heist's just listening, while Geist points out that careful processing would have pulled even more materials from the mess. Then Heist admits under his breath that his blessing might be a bit too intense. Geist shoves the whole conversation onto a new track and hands Heist a wax-sealed envelope, because it's an invitation to the S-rank ceremony, and Heist just can't believe it. He's sure he already got one. He stared at the Heist's letter and clocked the royal seal right away. Then the guild master snapped, asking if the royal family was funding this too, only for the Heist to cut in, saying, "Nope, this message is from them, not our guild." I let out a smug scoff in his head, because of course it all felt way too grand. Then he remembered it started with the very first king, who didn't just invent the idea of an adventure king. He was the first S-rank adventurer himself. The guild master laid out the stakes, because the royal family was about to decide if he really was a true S-rank adventurer, and the heirs of the kings were watching like hawks. To win that full recognition, Heist first had to pull off the exact task they handed him. As Jace took it all in, he dropped a crucial bomb. Sasha was there too, then a high-sized shot blared an alarm because she was right behind him. His face hardened and his armored fist locked down tight, then he spun back to Jay's, voice dropping low as he demanded, how could he possibly forget what went down between them? Guys said dead calm that Heist had told Sasha about Heist over and over again, until a nasty memory snapped back. Sasha, ringed by her party, calling him nothing but dead weight. Then the guildmaster's voice sliced through it, grilling whether he got kicked out for weakness or for something else, but the verdict was still the same: Heist was expelled. His usual Heist grin vanished, replaced by icy acceptance as he said he didn't care, because in his eyes, the weak getting thrown aside was just nature, and that's how you got stronger. While he talked, Sasha slipped out of the room quietly behind him. He locked eyes with the guild master, resolve burning like iron, and declared he wasn't about to quit his quest to get even stronger. That resolve got a brutal edge in him, bitterness biting deep, and then the word comrades hit his mind, followed by a sharp, silent sneer. Nonsense, with. Once his word was done, Heist spun on his heel and marched out of the office like he owned the place, while the guys stayed put, quietly sipping from his cup. He stared after that young man, thinking, yeah, Heist might have the power, but he's still just a kid. Months roar by, and then, within the royal palace's grand halls, two figures get summoned at once as an official steps forward and calls out, Adventurer Sasha and Adventurer Heist, while they stand there with their heads bowed. From his throne, Barbaros, the 13th king of Highbelk, cuts in and tells them, loud and clear, that this is the kingdom's word, and that he's the one who will decide their final S-rank promotion trials. On the sidelines, two young royals, Cress and Uni, watch the whole scene unfold. First, Prince Cress strides forward, calls out the first task, and tells Sasha the kingdom has picked her to crush a crystal golem that just spawned in a nearby mine. Then he announces he'll go with her. Sasha nods and calls out an honor, and just like that the spotlight snaps to the young woman, Nguyen, who rushes up to Heis and shouts that now it's his turn, and it's official. His mission drags him east into Philia, straight into the heart of the Gagazia Sacred Forest, territory claimed by the Adore Kingdom. First Princess Maine, now confirmed, lights up with a grin and declares she'll join Heis on his quest, and when he turns to her, he just freezes, stunned, as his protest starts to rise. He flat out refuses her, insisting she can't possibly come with him, and the princess freezes at his blunt no while the whole court stares in shock. That's when everyone finally spots it, a dark eye patch sitting over Heist's right eye. Nguyen fires back demanding answers, yelling that with her watching over him, he'd boost his odds on that S-rank mission, and then she grills him, are you even counting your companions in those calculations? Heist blows past her and faces the king straight on, saying the mission is too dangerous and he'll take it alone. Then he begs the king for forgiveness, while Sasha watches him with pure worry burning in her eyes. King Barbaro doesn't get offended by his defiance. He erupts into a thunderous laugh, his whole body trembling with amusement, leaving everyone nearby utterly dumbfounded. As the laughter fades, his eyes sharpen hard. He turns to the young adventurer and says this has never happened before, but it's the royal family's job to stand watch as those who outgrow every danger adventurers face keep rising. He keeps going, admitting he's heard plenty of wild stories about his high sixploits, then explains how he finishes every SRAN commission himself and battles to the very end solo. Just as the king's words hang in the air, Princess Mewing blurts out, begging her father, but the king snaps her shut instantly, then declares he'll make an exception for this, and this alone. The princess puffs out her cheeks, frustration bursting out in a sharp huff, because she just realized she can't go with him after all. With everything finally squared away, King Barbaros snaps his hands together and makes the call. He declares the crowd, in full ceremony, as the chosen audience to be. After the official stuff wraps up, the courtroom shifts into a calmer vibe as the servants roll in with trays of food and lay out simple feasts. While they're eating, King Barbaros lifts his glass and toasts Master Jays, then laughs like it's a joke, bragging about Heiss's terrifying nerve, and Jays can only choke out a strained, forced, "yeah, sure." Later, the king spots two men peering out from a giant arched window at Heis, standing alone down in the courtyard. Then he admits he should have told the guild master sooner, but snaps, "I never thought that kid had the guts to pull this off." At one of the banquet tables inside, the air feels painfully awkward. Princess Mayan refuses to quit and pushes food toward Sasha, while Reynolds, Philip, and Piazzala just stare, watching it all unfold. She clutches her hands together and pleads with Sasha to let her join the party on their mission. Then, like she's answering the silence, introduces herself as Mune and makes it clear she's not about to give up on that request. Reynolds bristles at this sudden twist, insisting it's not allowed for a royal, while Piazzala mutters through her teeth, furious that their first trip together is getting yanked away, yet Sasha just stands there, stunned and a little overwhelmed. Mune's face erupts with pure joy the second she realizes her request got accepted. She rushes to thank Sasha, shouting "Darling Sasha," calling it an honor, and the whole time Heist watches from the back like, wow, this princess is something. Right then, Prince Cress just shrugs and tells her to call him Cress. After that, the newly expanded party strides together through a sun-dappled forest, and the story zeroes in on Heist's eyes, burning with quiet, unshakable resolve for every step he takes down the path ahead. When night finally drops, he's alone under a crescent moon, staring up at a sky packed with stars. His gloved fist tightens, and that quiet grip screams resolve right before his solitary trial begins. His thoughts get shattered by a voice he knows. Heist whips around just in time to see the guild master rolling up on him with a drink in hand, looking worried out of his mind. The guild master gives him a sharp little scold, saying refusing a royal escort was disrespectful to the king and that it's dragged him, Jays, into a ton of trouble. Jays can only nervously chuckle and blurt out an apology. He lets his voice go soft as he ruffles the boy's Heist hair, then tells him to stay polite, while basically saying, "You're lucky the king's generous." And right after that, he warns him. Since he's going in alone, no one's coming to save him. His face hardens again, seriousness returns in a blink, then the guildmaster locks eyes with him and demands, "So what are you doing next?" Heist stares at his mess of a situation and grimly tightens his fist. He just got the sage's will, but the ancient book in his hands is still a locked puzzle, and his resolve is now steel. Guildmaster Jays delivers one last warning, "Be careful," and with a quick farewell, the young adventurer spins to go, the crescent moon casting dim shadows as the guild hall looms behind him and the heavy gate slams shut with a brutal thud. His lone silhouette strides through the towering stone gates, breaking free into the night. He doesn't even make it far when a familiar voice bursts out, urgently calling his name, so he slams on the brakes, turns around, and there's Sasha in the archway, staring at him with a serious look. She asks to talk for a second, and he shuts her down on the spot, demanding what they could possibly discuss, so Sasha swallows her pride and offers a soft, quiet apology. He scoffs at her apology, snaps that it's all nonsense, and turns his back on her again. His calm finally snaps. He whips around, voice shredded with rage, and snarls at her for going so polite and apologetic out of nowhere. Then he jabs at the bandage over his left eye and screams that she never cared when his eye got gouged out, before spitting, bitter as ever, that she's just trying to wipe her conscience after 2 brutal years. As he storms off again, Sasha barrels after him, yelling his name, trying to drag up the flower-picking incident, only for her words to sputter and fade. The moment she speaks, I'm dragged right back to the commission we took on together, and it's crystal clear now that Quest blew up in the worst possible way. He slashes through her words, his voice dripping pure sarcasm, and demands to know what she's even apologizing for. Then he blasts her and the others for never taking responsibility in the first place. Sasha freezes, totally speechless, and can't get a single word out. He stares at her with icy, hurt eyes and snaps that she's completely soulless. Then the words slam into Sasha like a punch. Her eyes go wide, tears rush in, and she can only whisper his name. He whips around and slams his back toward her. All sharp motion and instant resolve. Sasha jolts, then lunges forward, fingers grabbing at the empty air where he was standing a second ago. As the rain starts pouring around them, she snatches his hand, shaking as she blurts out an apology, admitting she was terrified, and in that moment, she honestly believed him leaving the party was the right call. Her face melts into a hopeful, pleading smile, and she begs him to finally understand. She reminds him of that promise she made. If he stayed safe, she'd turn their shared dreams into reality. Her plea only fans his rage. He yanks his hand free from her grip, cuts her words down as pure nonsense, and straight up wonders if she's been feeding him empty promises all along. He snaps that from this moment on he'll get strong his own way, forging his own path. Then those cruel words hit her hard, and one tear slips down Sasha's cheek, right as the rain starts to fall. His voice spikes with resentment as he keeps going, grilling her noble excuse for kicking him out, then snapping that her choice just erased every dream they ever had together. With his piece done, he tells her to keep pushing to become the strongest party, then sneers that even if he were powerful, he'd never throw out a weak link like she did. He turns and leaves, and Sasha just stands there, stunned, watching him vanish. He pauses one last time, still facing away from her, and declares that his life is shattered beyond repair. Everything has caved in and won't come back. Then he snaps a final warning. He's done depending on her for anything. And with that, he storms into the downpour, vanishing into the rain while she's left alone in the city square. Among the world's rarest medicinal herbs, one is whispered about as eternal moon fame. An open tome spells out its powers, while the plant blooms softly under the full moon's glow. They say this elusive herb only grows on the very top of Mount Gagasia, buried deep inside the forests of the ignorant kingdom. Locked inside the room, Heiss sits down and sizes up everything he's got. His dragon-scale armor, which is nothing but shed dragon skin, his Haplon ring, a magical item box with a tiny limit, and his grimoire, just a handful of pages. His preparations were finally in place. Now it was time. He marched up to the Merchants Guild and slammed his S-rank adventure card onto the reception counter, ready for them to inspect it. The guild staffer beams at him and says Guild Mastergeist is busy meeting Sasha, so he'll have to wait. Then, as he swivels toward the quest board, eyeing for any high-ranked jobs for rare herbs, he tells her, "No problem, I'll wait." As he scrolls through the listings, a sharp female voice snaps, "What's wrong?" and he jerks his head up to spot an elf with pointed ears and a bow tucked into her hair. He snaps back that it's nothing, but the elf keeps locking eyes on him, suspicion written all over her face. Before the guild's loud quest board, covered in bounty notices and hot requests, their heated exchange finally kicks off. She shatters the quiet with a straight-up question, "Are elves rare?" And when he turns to her, he nods and confirms it, "Yeah, more or less." He breaks it down and says it's downright rare to spot an elf who's wandered so far from the Gidera region. Then the map slams the point home, showing just how huge the gap is between Highbelk and those cut-off Gidera forests, and making it feel completely wrong that she's here. From a few steps away, he watched as another woman closed in on Piatsala, Persia, a B-ranked adventurer. She held up her ID, and the moment Piatsala saw it, her surprise flared. Apparently, it was Persia's first time here, and Piatsala couldn't believe how rare it was to run into someone else. As he inched closer, he told Piatsala this was the first time he'd ever met someone like her, so powerful all by herself. Then he watched her flip the question back on him, asking what was going on in his life. He didn't say a word, he just slapped down his own adventure card, and Piatsala's eyes went wide when she saw it was an S-rank. As they stood staring at the quest board, he admitted it was wild, almost unheard of, for an S-rank to go solo, but Piatsala barely cared about that. She zeroed in on his pick and warned him that he was signing up for a commission in the Gidera forest. The name Idara hit him like a slap, instant, burning reaction, so he stormed right up to her, voice dropping as he snapped that it wasn't any of her business, but his harsh interrogation got cut off when a guild staff member shouted that it was Heist's turn. Seeing he'd gone too far, he snapped himself back into control, declared he was out, and spun away from the stundel. Meanwhile, deeper in the guild hall, Sasha spotted a newcomer and grilled them right away, guessing they'd come for the same reason, meeting the guild master about a quest the king himself ordered. The man she spoke to was Heiss, and he just slipped past her in silence, face locked in some unreadable mask as he marched on. She watched him slip past, worry flickering across her face, while Piatsala clocked their quick, wordless exchange from just a few steps away. He barged into the guildmaster's office and froze. There were men there, plus a powerfully built stranger. The guildmaster turned straight to Heist and said the SS-ranked dragon in the Gagasia region was suddenly stirring. Then he dropped the real bombshell. The Yggdrasil clan, one of the four great clans, was moving in the same area too. He leaned in as the guildmaster's crew started laying out exactly who they were hunting, because the Yggdrasil clan was packed with demi-humans, and their leader was none other than the legendary hero. The guildmaster basically said clan might be the wrong word. This was a huge organization sheltering countless adventure parties, and those teams ran on their own while taking their rewards straight for themselves, with the clan grabbing not a single cut. Finishing his explanation, he watched as the guys slid a small sealed object toward him. Heist stared at it with a furrowed face like, what the hell is this? He made it crystal clear. This was a letter of introduction so Heist could walk into the Yggdrasil Guild, and Geist couldn't stop bragging that after 40 years in the game, his connections, even with the leaders of the four great guilds, would be the perfect advantage. He flung the letter aside and shoved himself out the high window. Heist was gone. Geist stared, gnawing on the warning, begging him to be careful. He thundered through the city's towering stone gates, shattering the buzz of the center behind him as he charged into the wide, open road of the outskirts. Suddenly, a flash of light blazed across his vision. He yanked up a strange, pistol-like weapon with lightning speed, snapped the mechanism into place and barked, "Who's there?" He fired off a warning shot, an energy blast exploding near the target he wouldn't show, and shouted that was just the first warning, because the next one would draw blood. Right then, a tiny smiling creature burst out of the ground and offered a straightforward apology. From behind the tree, the elf archer sprang out and confessed that he'd caught her, then demanded answers as the Heist pushed for why she was creeping around. She tried to explain, but he cut her off cold and told her to ask someone else. She wouldn't let it go. She pushed her case and told him she was headed for Gagasia too, insisting the same route meant any companion would do, then dared him to name a real reason she couldn't ride along with him. He locks eyes with the elf and growls, demanding to know why her misery has anything to do with him, while she lies on her sick bed, explaining that only one kind of herb can save her sister, that she already has everything except that missing ingredient, and that the monster's breeding season is roaring right now, making time run out fast. She leans in and admits the real plan. Traveling with him isn't a coincidence, it's a strategy. The Ghidorah Kingdom is even handling the logistics, clearing every obstacle, so he becomes the fastest, smoothest route straight to her goal. Now in the open field, he freezes in shock and blurts how she could possibly know every detail of his mission, only for the elf to shrug and say her instincts told her to eavesdrop on his plans. Panic flickers across her face as she clenches her fist, begging him to take her with him, because she's desperate to save her sister. He weighs her desperate request for their arrangement, then she slides him a star contract. She brings back the herb and he gets to keep every last coin, but if she dies on the way, he's free to leave her body behind. Just temporary companions until they hit their destination. Her gaze locks on like a blade, cold determination burning in her eyes as she refuses to back down, no matter what it costs her. He finally gives in and agrees to travel with them, but the second he does, he lifts a hand and lightning crackles over his fingers. Then he slams in one chilling command, "Begone." He lays out his grim rules. She has to live and die by her own power. Then he makes it crystal clear. There's no bond, no companionship, nothing between them. With the term locked in, he spins on his heel and strides off. Then, a few steps later, he skids to a stop and shouts, "Priscilla." She lifts her gaze and flashes a small smile as she confirms it's her name. Then she checks his highs, too. Just as their journey kicks off, a deafening crack rips through the forest. Then a goblin nearby screeches and drops instantly, its head shattered by some unseen force. The blast source clicks into place. It's a strange metallic weapon clutched by the heisters. Perseus freezes, glaring like, "That thing looks cursed." She shrugs and says her divine blessing lets her see what normal people can't. Perseus answers with nothing but a sharp, bitter grudge. Then she snaps her focus to the little winged buddy hovering right next to her, like the blessing given a heartbeat. The fairy confirms that's exactly why Priscilla can sense it, and the elf realizes it must be why Priscilla's knowledge is sharper, even if she still can't spot a single odd thing about Heist himself. But instead of answering, he gets swallowed by his own thoughts the moment she questions him, and a tired sigh escapes his lips, because his insane gift, Weapon Master, lets him wield armaments from another world, yet he has zero clue what any of it actually means. His skill opens the door to a weird arsenal, an M79 grenade launcher, a Winchester 1873, a Benelli Nova, and a Desert Eagle. Sure, he's loaded with ammo, but the real size of his power is still sealed shut. He tells her only he can wield those weapons. Then, when Priscilla reaches out to grab at his massive pack, it just vanishes from her touch. He's already checked they've gone far enough, so the Heist declares it's time to set up camp for the night. He snaps a surprisingly well-stocked camp into place in the clearing, keeps a steady hand over the fire as he cooks in the pot, and per SEO watches, He can't hide his awe as he marvels at how top-notch and oddly unique everything he brought really is. His cooking complete, he slides over a tray with a thick, hearty sandwich and a steaming bowl of soup, and she immediately spots the difference. Top-tier ingredients, nothing like the usual scraps even S-rank adventurers choke down. She hesitates and it hits him like a reminder of their deal. "Aren't we enemies?" she asks. He doesn't even turn his head, he just orders her to eat. She takes a cautious bite of the soup, and her eyes pop wide like she can't believe what she's tasting. The flavor hits like a revelation. As she's stunned by his cooking, Heist perches on the tent roof, thinking that if you're an S-rank porter, you don't get to rely on anyone, you've got to handle everything yourself. With the bowl finally scraped clean, Prosia leans in and offers her thanks. Her gratitude hangs in the air as she keeps staring at him, and when he catches that unblinking look, he can't help asking what's really going on in her head. She blurts out her shock and admits she's genuinely grateful. She'd written him off as some cold, heartless guy, but his actions prove she was wrong. His sincerity knocks the words right out of him for a second, and all that slips out is a stunned, "Huh." As she finishes her thought, Persia spills the real reason she's grateful. This journey isn't just a trip, it's her shot to save her sister. With the campfire popping beside them, she tells him to finally rest, swearing she'll ask the spirits to watch over them. Then she beams and thanks him for the amazing dinner before curling up. He nods along, and when he looks up at the starry sky, nostalgia hits him so hard it feels like something he's been missing his whole life. Right when they finally catch a breath, the trees start rustling, and the second they look up, his eyes blow wide with pure disbelief. "That tree," he blurts, shaking. "Look." Towering over everything is a colossal ancient tree, its branches clawing toward the sky. This is the Great Tree, the guild's proud symbol, and the home base of the Yggdrasil clan. With pure reverence, Krisha tells you where the Great Tree began. She claims one of the four sages, Ibis, a true leader, poured out their immense power to forge it into existence. This bombshell instantly sparks the big question: who are the four great clans? Their origins hold the clue. Each one traces back to a different kingdom, and together they form the world's power structure. Then the four great clans of the world get thrown into the spotlight. Yggdrasil for the elves, Seyfried's holy knights up north, an elite order that only lets in people with the right blessing, the stone monarchs, Dungeon Empire to the south, and way west, the Red Capital, the biggest entertainment hotspot on the whole planet. Right when Hyzen hits the main gate of the Ghidorah kingdom, carved into the base of that giant tree, an elf guard slams the brakes, shows a royal warrant, and says the royal family sent him to escort them to Gagasia Mountain, so he needs their identification papers before they can pass. His face tightens as he weighs the request, eyes locked on his target, and then he makes it clear. The young woman standing with him is part of it too. She stays half-hidden behind him, peeking out from the folds of her cloak, and he murmurs questions under his breath, only for her to shoot back a whisper, telling him to ignore her. The heist crew slides a letter from the merchant guild and a coin into the guard's hands as proof of passage. He looks stunned, like this shouldn't work. Then an elderly elf with a blazing white beard steps out from inside the gate and snaps, "Back off," ordering the guard to stand down, and the flustered guard hastily waves them through. The elder whips around to Heis, blurting out an apology for the delay and clocking him as Geist's man, then cuts him off. Sage Ibis is waiting for him right now. Panic sparks in Heis's chest as he clamps onto the old elf's arm and demands, "Take me there, lead the way." He shoots a look back at Persia and tells her to wait, and for a blink suspicion cracks across his face. He can't stop wondering why the elves' mood changed so fast, and what kind of power a simple letter from Geist could really carry. When the elder beckons him closer, Persia steps up to his side and steadies him, telling him the great sage Ibis wields power even bigger than the Ghidorah royal family, and to not stress at all. The shock hits Heist hard, and he's stunned for a moment. He follows the elder deeper into the trees, until they halt in front of a huge gated contraption bolted into the wood, and Heist can't help it. He blurts, "What is this?" The elder just smiles and tells him, dead calmly, that it's an elevator. The contraption glides to a perfect stop with a soft chiming sound, and when the gate slides back, a huge settlement sprawls out beneath the branches of the mighty tree. Then the elder declares, "We're here." Head stretches a long, sun-splashed staircase, winding toward a towering shrine, right when the elder points it out, and declares it the sanctuary of the great sage Ibis, the sacred domain of Yggdrasil's leader. With a swift, sharp SHK asterisk, the ornate sliding doors split apart. Heis and his elderly elven guide push into a massive grand chamber, and up on a raised platform sits a lone figure with long, pale hair. She tilts her head a little, a pipe pressed to her lips, and flashes a quick, no-nonsense greeting. She snaps around to reveal her true form, an elf of Heist standing, then grins and steps right up to her, Ibis, the clan master of Yggdrasil, dropping the bombshell that Heist is Geist's disciple. Heist jerks his head up, totally stunned that she knows him that well. She raises the letter like proof, tells everyone she's already read Geist's message, and admits the old man is begging her to step in and help with Heist. She bursts into laughter, saying the request is totally out of nowhere, but she'll accept it in good spirit. As Heist stays silent, she leans in and sniffs the air like a detective, then grins. There's a sweet scent of divine medicine spilling right out of him. Her playful smile drops the moment she leans in, eyes sharpening, then she clocks the gunpowder smell on him like it's nothing. He freezes, clearly shocked, and blurts that he has no idea how she even could know about guns. Ibis just answers with a cryptic calm. She used to know someone exactly like him before she pulls back. He snatches the moment, thrusts the mysterious book in his hands into view, and fires off to the clan master. Do you know anything, or have you got any leads on it? Ibis snatches the book, eyes flicking over the cover, and recognition hits like a punch. She whispers that eerie coincidence. Heist immediately leans in and grills her, forcing the truth. She knows exactly what it is, and she confirms it. As Ibis peers at the open pages, the truth hits. She snaps the book's identity into place. It's Nabunaga's diary. She snaps her eyes up from the diary, concentration melting into shock, then flips the pages fast and asks Heist who he is, because he has to be from another world. She blurts her question, stunned that someone from another world can even read the book. Then Heist admits he can only catch a little of it. Ibis takes it back and mutters that she doesn't know what blessing would let him do that. As her black-tipped fingers glide over the open page, she suddenly freezes. Then it hits her. She can read way more of the text than before. A wicked little grin lights up her face, and she decides this is way too good to waste, so she orders Heist to sit down and read the diary out loud. He looks up at that towering elf and nods immediately, swearing he'll read every single word exactly as it is. He starts reading that entry about how Ibis came to visit, and it even likens her to a cute little cat. Then the author, Nabunaga, jokes about dressing her up in a cat costume. The moment Ibis hears it, she explodes in a flustered rage, yelling that it's all lies. Heist is thrown for a loop and blurts, "What's wrong?" while Ibis keeps steaming that she'll punish Nabunaga, leaving him to question what's really going on between them. Her embarrassment hits a breaking point. She snatches the book right out of his hands, snaps that's enough for today, and tells him to come back another time if he still needs help. A sudden yank makes Heist stumble backward and crash onto the floor. Out on the Gagasia mountain slopes, he stared up at the sky, clutching that diary, and the wild coincidence hit him hard. He'd opened to the exact page, and it actually talked about a living book with a will of its own, and that was downright unsettling. As he keeps moving, the ground suddenly bucks and erupts. Then a colossal, worm-like monster tears out of the earth with a deafening roar. Right nearby, the elf archer Praja spots the mist getting thicker, but her view gets swallowed the moment the beast finally breaks through. The creature crashes its huge body to the ground, and the shock flings Persia into the air as he screams in panic. Then Heist spits out a frustrated click when he sees his partner get wiped out. He rockets into action, surging straight at the monster, and his glowing gauntlet ignites as he hammers it with a relentless barrage of explosive blasts that smash into its hide. His strike landed perfectly, crunch, dropping the colossal worm hard to the ground, and Prasia just froze, staring in stunned silence as the threat vanished before her very eyes. The creature's body jerked, then melted away into nothing as he stared at the fading magic pattern on his gauntlet and warned her to stay on her guard, because he had a nasty feeling the monster was hunting by sin. She whipped around at him, eyes full of confusion and thanks, and demanded, "Why did you save me if we weren't even on the same side?" He wouldn't look her in the eye, just said, flat out, that her job was to heal her sister. He kept going, admitting he didn't have to help, but insisting their goal matched the girl's, and he awkwardly thanked Persia for the advice she dropped on him during the whole journey. Her hard, serious face melted into a warm, knowing smile. Then she brushed off his whole argument as if it didn't even matter and just thanked him, and that heartfelt gratitude hit him so fast he let out a startled cry. Priscilla kicked their journey back into gear, pointing at a dark silhouette in the moonlight and whispering that the dragon had gone hunting, so she urged them to sprint fast, grab what they came for, and vanish before it came back. He started to fume, pushing her to hurry back the moment she grabbed the item, and he snapped, asking how anyone could ever doubt a dragon in its own turf, then muttered that something was off. Frisia shot back that she'd be handsomely rewarded for getting it done. His unease got stomped into truth the moment the ground blew open beneath them. More grotesque worm monsters surged up from the earth, and he clenched his teeth, furious, because he recognized that nightmare. Priscilla shoved aside the fresh swarm of monsters and drove straight on, her mind locked in place. Then she finally burst into the small clearing, gripping a tiny bottle in her hand. She whipped her eyes across the area, hope burning bright for a second, then crashing into panic. Nothing. She forced herself to move faster, but the truth hit like a punch. The thing she'd come for was gone. She drops to her knees, drowning in despair because every last leaf is gone, none remain. Ibis looms over her and ice cold demands where the Vin Noyat Dan has vanished. Persia's eyes brim with tears as she can only beg her sister's forgiveness, while Hais lies unconscious a short distance away. Their despair gets obliterated by a thunderous roar that rattles the ground, and then boom, a hulking SS Plus monster, the Tandai Long, smashes into view with its massive maw wide open. Persia's face twists with raw terror as she looks up at this brand new, unstoppable nightmare. Pricea, the elf archer, digs her heels in and refuses to back down as a monstrous giant toad looms over her. Then the beast gurgles, mouths wide, and she stares it down with unbreakable grit. She fully believes she can escape, if she just nails one crushing shot, and when she raises her bow, magical energy whips into a raging vortex around the arrowhead as she locks her sights. The enchanted arrow rockets true and slams the creature right in the head with a heavy thud, yet to Priscilla's horror, the beast barely even twitches, because her attack does absolutely nothing against that insanely tough High. That weak attack gets answered instantly. The giant toad bellows a brutal, earth-shaking roar, and Perceive jerks back, her confidence cracking as a terrified scream rips out of her. The monster's long, sticky tongue snaps out at insane speed. Before she can even blink, it coils tight around her waist and yanks her up into the air, effortless as a swing. With a savage slam, the monster hurls her to the ground, and the hit rattles everything. Then it roars like it just won as its tongue keeps tightening around her. Right in the middle of the chaos, a voice slashes through. High steps up, left eye crushed and bleeding, gasping like he ran for his life. Pricea, still trapped, whips her gaze to him in pure shock, asking why he's even here, but he doesn't answer. He just bellows, tells her to back away, and turns to clash. He raises his firearm and unleashes a blazing volley. Shots crackle, sparks fly, and the rounds ricochet off the monster's brutal hide like they mean nothing at all. Teeth clenched, he realizes with sick certainty. This firepower won't even dent the thing. Undeterred, he snaps the smaller weapon into its holster and rips out a massive double-barreled gun, its muzzles gaping like they're ready to bite. He slides a tiny glowing vial straight into the weapon's chamber, then spins the enhanced gun forward like a trigger about to snap, ready to unleash a blast that hits way harder than before. He yanked the trigger, boom, and the night lit up as the enhanced shot tore out of the barrel, slamming the colossal toad right in its head. The blow slammed the beast into a violent stumble, and it crumpled onto the ground lifeless. Heiss let out a shaky breath and finally confirmed it dead. Then he spun toward Persia, asking if she was okay, and she just blinked, stunned into a quiet yeah, still amazed he'd brought down that dragon-like monster so easily. Her initial shock cracked into sharp confusion. She stared at him, fear threaded through every word, and demanded to know why he was there, then reminded him he was supposed to get back right after grabbing the herbs. While he stayed silent, it hit her like a punch. He'd sprinted back just to save her, and her face instantly warmed with a sweet blush. Then her eyes slipped past him, locking onto the view ahead, and the flowers were glowing, even though they weren't supposed to bloom in daylight. Heist followed her stare, bewildered, trying to figure out what was going on. Their eyes locked onto the Vin Noyat Dan, and as they stared, the petals slowly sagged and withered, its glow fading right before them. Priscilla clocked it instantly. The dragon's blood was choking them, withering everything in its path. She whispered in shock and stared across the ruined, blighted fields. Panic surged through her chest. She spun to Heiss and blurted that they had only a little time left, then jabbed a finger toward the exact spot up ahead. She sprinted through the field like her life depended on it, snatching flowers as she ran. Then a blinding flash in the distance lit up the horizon, signaling the battle that was about to explode. She carefully set a fragile, glowing flower into a glass jar, then slammed the lid shut tight, locking in its light so it wouldn't dim. She snapped her attention back to the moment, spun the heist into motion, and thrust the sealed jar toward him, then flashed a grin and announced that the dragon was finally down, declaring it was his reward for everything he'd fought for. She pushes the gift into his hands, warning him she'll have to hunt for what she needs elsewhere. Then the heist just goes quiet, clutching that glowing jar tight, staring as she walks off, torn between pure confusion and real worry. Just as he's about to answer, the silence gets shredded, an alarm of shouting blasts from the mountain's base, and a young male elf comes barreling toward them, panic written all over his face as he screams for Princess Prassia. He bursts up to the group and yanks High's shoulder, his voice shaking with pure relief and sharp blame, then blurts that they were terrified, because the princess disappeared without a trace, and all that remained was a tiny note. His eyes narrow as he sizes up Highs, grilling him, "Are you really that S-class adventurer, and did you ride with the princess all the way to Gagasia?" Highs just nods back, calm but deadly certain. Yeah, that was him. He stays dead quiet while the attendant blurts out the princess's real identity, Prassia, heir to Queen Alsara of the Deepwood Kingdom of Ghidorah. Then the attendant interrogates why she's traveling, and his face tightens like he's finally locking in on his suspicions. Prassia's blood boils from his insinuation. She spins on him and demands to know if he really expects her to dump her sister and watch her die, while the attendant looks away and whispers that maybe it's just fate. Even the sacred Gagasian mountain couldn't save her. She clenches her fist, her resolve turning steel, while the attendant keeps pushing, telling her to come back with them so they can hash out her succession to the throne. Once the talk turns to royal power, Heist snaps that it's time to leave, pats Priscilla lightly on the shoulder, whispers his farewell and strides off, while she just gapes after him, frozen in stunned silence. Later, inside a chamber deep in the kingdom of Ghidorah, Perseo is crumpled in Queen Alsara's arms, tears pouring as she admits her quest is a dead end. She couldn't find a single Vin Noyet Dan flower. Queen Alsara holds her tight and soothes her shaking, devastated sister. She kneels down, soothing her younger sister and repeating that maybe all this was just fate, same as before, because the queen makes it crystal clear. What counts isn't the destination, it's the road she chose, whether she headed west or toward the central lands. Prosia wipes her tears away and nods, solemn and steady. She hands her sister, Queen Alsara, a tiny gift, and the queen just stares in shock. Then Priscilla grins and says it's a small souvenir she picked up on her journey. The gift Vin Noyet Dan flower sits flawlessly trapped inside a glass jar, and the moment she remembers how she got it, her heart crashes forward. Tears spill as she thinks of the one who made it possible, Heis. A few days later, inside the Adventurers Guild, Heis sinks alone at the counter, nursing a drink, while a guild official barks behind it that he's flopped yet again on another commission. The man can't believe it. Heis botched a simple escort for the princess, then turned down payment for his own trouble. Then the guild official abruptly shifts gears, slides him a fresh job, and tells him they just unearthed a new dungeon that needs investigating, passing the Heist the official request. Just as he starts to walk out, a voice he knows like a lullaby yells his name. Heist slams the brakes, stunned, when Princess Prassia stands in the doorway grinning bright and cheerful. Queen Alsara's very presence screams how far she's come. Those flower-based medicines pulled her back from the brink, and now she's strong enough to return to her duties, with a debt to him she can't ever forget. In the present day, Heist studies her with a tired look and asks, straight up, what she wants from him now. With the queen finally healed, she's been given the green light to keep traveling, and now she's determined to pay him back for every bit of help he's thrown her way. Ernest's determination hits like a spark, and she immediately offers to be his companion, right there, ready to help whenever he needs her. But Heist is caught totally off guard, then instinctively stumbles back and shuts the idea down flat. His blunt refusal should have shut her down, but it only makes the elven princess grin. She lets out a soft, knowing chuckle as she watches him, looking more amused and stubbornly determined than disappointed. As he turns his back and stalks away, his footsteps softly echo. Then she blurts one last plea, begging him to at least join her for me if he won't do anything else. Her words slam a memory into him from just days ago, him strolling through the city streets right after his party was assembled, Prosia grinning and pointing out a sweet-looking tavern nearby, yet he stayed quiet, swallowed by his own racing thoughts. He still remembers every one of his companions' faces from that day: Sasha, Reynolds, Robin, Piazzala, Typhoon, Prince Cress, and Princess Mewing, and when they stood together, unity hit like a punch. They hardened their resolve, forged their steel, and swore to crush the royal family's trial and smash the crystal Galen. At the mining entrance, Sasha locks eyes on that dark passage, determination burning in her gaze, realizing they need a ruthless, perfectly coordinated assault, and deciding right now that before they push through to the end, the whole party has to go over their strategy. Prince Crest steps forward and lays out the whole plan, then points at two identical Sashas and says they'll start by using his duplicate ability. He keeps going with the briefing. Once his power kicks in, Robin will fire her exploding arrow, and Princess Mia will supercharge it. With the plan finally locked in, Sasha steps up and tells everyone she's got full faith in the team, because the moment they're ready, she's going in to land the final blow. Reynolds, Robin, Heiss, and Philip fix their eyes on her, hanging on every word. Then she locks eyes on the royal siblings, and with perfect formality, asks Prince Cress and Princess Nguyen one thing: are they ready to step into their parts of the plan? Cress and Mewing burst out their yes in perfect sync, their faces burning with grit as they brace for the fight ahead. With their resolve locked in, Sasha snaps his declaration. Then she strides forward with unshakable confidence, dragging the whole crew straight into the mine's shadowy depths. Inside, the party stares at a mind-blowing cavern packed with blazing, high-purity crystals, and Princess Mewing steps up to explain their mining for crafting and export. Touch anything you're not allowed to, and you'll be hit with an instant execution. Sasha gushes to Heiss about the magical view, but he just goes quiet, staring off into the distance as memories hit him, because he's heard the quarry looks even more spectacular from inside. Hayatala clocks the whole thing, seeing right through his pensive mood. Princess Muin's sudden scream rips through everyone's thoughts. She orders everyone to stop, and out of the crystal depths looms a towering, jagged monster made of rock and crystal, the crystal golem. Robin surveys the crystal mine's entrance from up high, then calls out her findings to the crew, 7 golems total, 5 stalking deeper inside and 2 posted right at the gate, guarding it like it's their lifeline. Philip can't take it. He blurts out his confusion, staring at those things and demanding to know what they even are. As she talks, Heist scours the constructs and leans toward Sasha. Those weird, jerky moves aren't natural at all. They're just ore and stone that got turned into golems. Reynolds barrels in and cuts him off, then whips around to Sasha and demands a plan, pointing out that monsters hatched from something simple or a deposit shouldn't be able to think this clearly. With a fierce stare, Sasha draws her sword and goes straight for the obvious move. She snaps that they're sticking to the original plan, then plants a hand on Prince Cress's shoulder and orders him to unleash Duplicate. The moment her fingers touch him, a gentle glow blooms and the magic kicks in. In the blink of an eye, a flawless copy of Sasha appears right beside her, and Robin erupts, yelling that everything now rests on the princess. At the same moment, Princess Muin locks in her power and hurls an explosion charm that blasts outward, swallowing Robin's arrows in searing light. Her arrow blazes with raw power as Robin snaps her bow back, loads a whole fan of projectiles, and with a fierce battle cry, declares it's time to strike. She unleashed the enchanted arrows, and they screamed across the battlefield, plowing straight into the smaller golems and detonating into brutal explosions that tore through the frontline guardians. With the smaller threats wiped out, the 2 Sashes explode forward together in total sync. Then they launch into the air, blades blazing a huge glowing arc as they unleash the White Lotus Slash. Their synchronized strike slams into the 2 giant guardian golems, and boom, crystalline bodies split wide, cracking and shattering as they get crushed by the combined assault. As the dust finally settles, Sasha coolly announces that the monsters are wiped out for good, and Payatsala can't stop marveling at how brutally strong Cress's blessing is. Then Princess Muin collapses in exhaustion, panting hard, and tells everyone she has to rest a full day before she can copy another blessing. She leans into the crushing darkness of the mineshaft, and dread crawls up her spine, because something is hiding in there, and every instinct in her body screams that it's up to no good. Her brother, Prince Cress, clocks her unease right away and presses her for whether she's messing around. She snaps back grimly that it's all too real, then admits that the crystal golem they just fought was nothing like anything she'd ever seen. His face tightens the moment those words hit, and a hard truth slams into him: we've been detected. He steps forward like a commander, his voice booming as he orders the whole party to stay on high alert, because this mission will not forgive a single careless move. After he barks the order, the whole crew marches into a massive dugout chamber marked as a crystal workshop, only for one of them to blurt that their target is freakishly skilled. In the dark shadows, a horned man reclines on rubble like he owns the night, smirking as he talks about the pretty, white-haired girl, until Sasha snaps, "Who are you?" And the demon answers with a grin, "I'm Crane of the Demon Clan." That name blasts through every heist plan like thunder. He blurts Demon Clan over and over, stunned, remembering them as a rival force that once fought to seize dominion over humanity itself. The world split clean in 2, human realm on one side, demon realm on the other, and that massive invasion only got stopped by one person, but the damage didn't vanish, it fractured everything. Now they're standing on land that belongs to the demon realm, and the creature in front of them, yeah, that's one of its own. In a flash, Crane slips in behind the party, his speed so unnerving it makes your stomach drop. Then he smirks, taunts them about how they crossed between the realms, even though it's impossible, and casually asks after the Demon King's health like it's small talk. His sudden burst onto the scene, and those ominous words set off a string of panicked heists. Then he whips around to Sasha, voice razor-tight, demanding they retreat right now. Sasha shoots him a confused glance, still reeling from how fast everything just turned dark. Historical depiction lays bare just how brutal the past really was. An ancient map shows a colossal war where thousands of soldiers threw away their lives, marching straight into a relentless tide of powerful demons, each one a nightmare standing on its own. Right now, the demon Crane strolls off from the down heist, chuckling like he owns the place, and strings him along with a taunting compliment about his grit, then casually says he'll let him live, because as the heist finally strains up to his feet, he's still down but not out. With a glowing crystal clenched in his hand, fresh from the workshop, Sasha storms in, eyes blazing and her voice slicing through the air, demanding to know what he's planning, only for him to smirk and say his work is already done. He keeps talking, brushing off their chatter like it's just noise, Then he tells them if they want to praise him, they'd better bring real enthusiasm, and with that, a cold, dismissive breeze ruffles Sasha's hair as he speaks. He bursts into a hearty laugh, like he's just noticed what formal address I've been using, and then he tells me to drop it, to go with something more familiar. His friendly grin cuts straight through the tension, and it feels like night and day. His smile dies in a blink. Sasha pops up right behind him, blade out and blazing with raw power. Crane's eyes go wide in shock as he feels her terrifying killing intent and can't even wrap his head around what just hit him. Her sudden strike blasts a shockwave through her crew. Hai yells her name in panic, while Reynolds snaps at her for trashing the rules. Sasha doesn't blink. She vows to wipe out the human who dares to throw chaos into Highbelk. Hayazala steadies herself and confirms the mining permit is already revoked. When the confrontation hits, power surges through the party as enhancement magic kicks in, and Crane just smirks. Finally, things are moving. He casually flicks his finger and whips up a swirling wind vortex that targets Heist dead-on. He scoffs at their whole setup, unimpressed that they're wasting 3 enhancement spells, until the wind finally explodes, slamming into him and flinging him into the cavern wall. As Sasha shouts his name, she glares at a Crane, eyes icy as she tosses him aside like trash. Then he disappears, boom, right in front of Sasha, fist cocked back like a cannon, and he's smiling like, "You want to call this a technique?" Reynolds can only panic shout as he unleashes a crushing punch swarmed in wind, and that strike is about to land. She stared down the demon Crane as he loomed over her with a wicked grin, and he taunted her, jeering, "Are you scared now?" His power tore debris through the air, and with a brutal declaration, he warned he wasn't some harmless fan meant to chill her. He was pure destruction. Then he shot up into the air, hanging in a raging whirlpool of wreckage, staring down at the whole party like they were nothing but flies. Then he promised to grant their wish for death. She planted her feet and refused to back down. Sasha admitted Crane was a beast of a demon, but snapped back that raw power isn't the whole game. She declared that real fighting isn't just about skill or brute muscle, and she was about to prove it, no excuses. Crane just smirked, amused by her fiery nerve. Suddenly, a hailstorm of projectiles slammed into him, detonating into brutal concussive blasts. He reeled, snapped his head around, and demanded to know who the hell dared attack. His eyes snapped to the culprit, Philip, heaving from the effort of driving that staff. The demon just scoffed, totally stunned, like, how in the world could some puny brat toss me around with nothing but trash? Right before he could even react, another wave of tiny, blazing fast projectiles slammed into him, ending with a brutal explosion that swallowed his world. And from the smoke, a calm voice asked, like it was all a game, "Did you finish playing?" When the dust finally cleared, the whole party, Heiss, Reynolds, Philip, Piazzala, and Robin, came into view, huddled behind 2 giant magical shields, while Crane huffed in irritation at how perfectly they'd timed that defense. Piazzala drifted beside him and shot him a confident smirk, saying, in no uncertain terms, that 1 tree doesn't make a forest. His power alone wasn't enough. As Piazzala finished the proverb, 3 trees together can stack into a high mountain, Sasha charged in like a thunderclap, her sword blazing as the demon never saw it coming. Her blade carved a deep slash across his chest, and Crane staggered back, gasping, half pain, half pure shock. She stood over him like it was finished, and Sasha snapped that his time playing with them was finally over. She watches as Demon Crane explodes into a ruthless tirade, screaming that he'll slaughter every last one of them, every human trash soul, then burn their homes and after that the whole kingdom down. His fury keeps climbing, his uncovered eye blazing with pure malice, and at last he snaps his murderous focus straight onto Sasha, the sword wielder. With his threat finally out there, he vanishes in a blur, an explosive burst of speed, until only disturbed air and cracked earth mark where he tore through. Even after the demon vanishes out of nowhere, Sasha doesn't even blink. She stays frozen in place, eyes locked on him as she tracks his every move you can't see. In the Grand Habel Palace, the silence screams, have the demon gods finally slipped into the capital. Inside the throne room, Princess Mewing hurries to her father, King Barbaros, and tells him the shocking news. Someone calling himself Crane has shown up, openly plotting to topple the kingdom of Habelk, and King Barbaros just stares back with a grim, unshakable expression. Her brother, Prince Cress, butts in and says he'll hear the report straight from her, so Mewing turns to the king, thanking him, and Barbaros's look warms her up, even as he admits his crushing disappointment. What a disaster that Heiss couldn't finish the mission. Then he turns straight to the sacred party, praising their legendary wins, and promises them one wish, right there, demanding to know what they want most. Sasha bursts forward the moment he makes his offer, eyes blazing with hope and shock. Then she politely demands a private headquarters for the sacred party, a real clan home, and the king and his advisor Bonnet look like they already knew it was coming. This reward comes straight from a fresh burst of celebration. Reynolds, Heiss, Sasha, Piazzala, and Philip, threw a sacred party to celebrate finishing their mission and getting promoted to the elite S rank. Coming back to the throne room, Advisor Bonnet flashes Sasha a warm smile and tells her she doesn't need to thank him for a reward she truly earned. Then his face sharpens into suspicion as he demands to know why the heist mission failed. This question hangs in the air, but the answer hits harder. Haished actually slipped into the Adora Kingdom and snatched back the rare Vin Noit Dan flower, and now Sasha just stares, frozen, at the preserved bloom. That flower was meant for one desperate mission, to find a cure for the grave illness-crushing Queen Alcera, who's lying weak in her bed, barely hanging on. Her grave sickness is what pushed Heist to shove his official duties aside, because instead of handing a life-saving flower to his superiors, he secretly delivered it to Prussia, the Queen's own younger sister. In a room thick with tension, Crane snaps his finger at Heist and zeroes in on the truth. Yeah, Heist blew his assigned mission, but you can't just wipe away the heroics where he saved the Ghidorah royal family. Crane then reveals the king already pardoned him, yet Heist turned it down himself, and that choice makes Crane clench his fist hard with pure frustration. Elsewhere, the royal advisor Bonnet talks to Sasha in a lively Piazzala. Piazzala bounces on her feet, peppering him with, "So what did Procia do next?" And sniping that Heist always seems to have zero ambition, like clockwork. Sasha's eyes widen in shock as she listens. Bonnet leans in and explains that Procia has ditched Ghidorah to chase adventure. Then, right as he finishes, he says he's pretty sure she's out there traveling with Hais, and the vision hits. Hais and Procia walking away together. That bombshell hits and Piazzala erupts in disbelief, demanding to know why Prasia would ever side with criminals and heists, while Sasha stays stone-cold silent, her face twisting into confusion and worry. Her companion's outburst doesn't clear a single thing, just rattles the air. Sasha's eyes drop as she quietly wonders if Heist really plans to start a whole new party with that elf princess. Meanwhile, inside the guild hall, Heist sits across from Guild Mastergeist, and the old man leans in like he already knows, asking if Heist is taking a break, and Heist jolts with a startled yes, confirming it. He's told his dungeon mission is officially done, and Jays slaps a fresh S-rank adventure card into his hands, telling him that starting on floor 60, only top-tier teams get in. Guild Master leans back, grinning like he knows more than he's saying, wondering if Heist really has his own reason for coming, and whether he'll have to hunt down yet another card just to finish what he started. Once the formalities were out of the way, Jace told Heist to drop the act, kick back, and enjoy being young, because he's only 16 or 17, and right then Piazzala overheard it and teased, asking if he'd got a day marked for the upcoming spring festival, leaving Heist totally, completely stunned. His confusion gets blown away when Persia suddenly leans in close, grinning wide like she owns the moment, and asks if he's still going to reject her company, so hard Heist almost spits out his drink. Piazzala points at them and cackles, saying Persia is straight up clinging to him, and Fluster Heist snaps back, demanding to know if she's just teasing him. As the chaos finally calms down, Jays drops a steadying hand on Heist's shoulder, and with a serious yet gentle look, the guildmaster tells him, this is exactly where Heist was meant to be. He studies the flyer for the annual Old Book Fair in Habok's reusing district, and his eyes light up. This is the perfect chance to hunt down rare books and steal a little day off. Right as he starts to mull it over, Procia pops up, grinning and asking if he's headed to the fair. Before he can even answer, she claims she's coming too, saying she'll be waiting for him, and even though he's stunned for a second, he gives in and agrees. They come rolling into the bustling old market district, and the streets instantly burst with people wandering from stall to stall. Then Priscilla grins and tells him he vanished into his own head the second they stepped in. His eyes lock onto a bookshop that's practically calling his name, packed with a promise of a treasure trove of texts in its signature, and before he can think twice, he charges right in to get a closer look. Inside, he scans the room, and his eyes light up. Books crowd the shelves from floor to ceiling in ridiculous numbers. His eyes snap to a single volume shoved on a table, ***, The Adventure Diary of S-Rank Adventurer, Gerald. He doesn't recognize the name, so he files it away to ask about this Gerald at the guild later, because curiosity finally wins and he snatches the book. Right when his gauntlet fingers are about to clamp onto the spine, a second hand slips in and touches his, soft, but it throws everything off. He whips around, shocked to find Sasha standing right there, and before she can finish her apology, her voice cuts out when she finally realizes who she just collided with. Right when things get painfully awkward, the rest of the sacred party bursts in out of nowhere. Reynolds immediately snaps, asking why Heist is even there, and Piazzala grins and needles. So, is this a date? Stuck between them, Sasha's whole world goes blank, and she spirals into pure flustered panic. He goes stone still when he sees Reynolds cackling while pinning Piazzala in a playful headlock. Piazzala yells that they're not a couple, but all he can think about is how his eyes snap straight to his old comrade. The book slips right out of his hands, thudding softly onto the floor, and then, Heiss, that familiar voice, snaps his name out like a warning. He looks up and spots Sasha, who jumps in asking what's wrong and whether he's started arguing again. Piazzala, finally free of Reynolds' grasp, leans in and says they should all grab a drink since his legs must be worn out, and the Heist just flashes a tight, silent smile. He snaps around and turns his back on him. "I'm leaving," he declares, then storms off while Reynolds and Piazzala just stare as he disappears. Moments later, still seated in an outdoor cafe, Priscilla leans in and asks if the woman he spotted was Sasha. Heist nods and confirms it, then quickly explains they're just his old party members. She pushes harder, and when she drops that Sasha was his childhood friend, Heist snaps, calling it just an old game and brushing off any connection, like their past means absolutely nothing to him now. Chrissy's gentle side breaks through as she pushes him to face the truth. Were those feelings for Sasha real love, or was it love that he was trying to deny? Her voice snaps serious and she drills it into him. They nearly killed him, and he can't ignore what his own investigation already proved. Betrayal hits him like a flashback, hot and brutal, and Priscilla admits the motive, still hazy, but the assassination attempt is real, plain, and undeniable. His face twists in agony as he blurts, "How am I supposed to go back to how it was?" And that question hangs there, heavy and unanswered. Priscilla stares him down from across the table, cutting straight to the point. There's no turning back. He drops his gaze, trapped in his own thoughts, and then she fires another question. "Have you ever wanted to?" He could only stare as the chaos exploded. Crane, that horned menace, tore into the monsters with brutal curses, and then the earth itself snapped up with a scream of a super-earth layer, smashing them underfoot as Crane raged, screaming for the damned maggots to be ground to dust. The horned warrior snapped his chilling stare onto them, and his voice dropped like a threat from a cliff. He swore he'd tear them apart piece by piece until none were left. Tracy's eyes bulged as the truth hit her because she recognized him, a legend from Highbell. With a sharp snap of his fingers, another monstrous stone beast erupted right in front of them, and Heist didn't even flinch, just smirked, cracked his knuckles, and braced for the look on his opponent's face when they finally collided again. But before the Heist could even move, the stone beast got smashed to pieces, its head exploding into dust. Crane loomed over the wreckage, his grin snapping into something unhinged, and he started wondering out loud if one palm strike had ever truly ended a life. Then he reached out toward them and barked, "Beg me." 1 month later in the guild hall, a maid sweeps and dusts right beside a massive banner, while a newspaper lies open nearby, bragging about how the sacred party keeps racking up victory after victory, and hinting that a terrifying, great sin is about to crash down. While she works, a door creaks open, and she whips around, startled, just in time to see Heist stumble and looking completely wiped out. Right as she's about to greet him, loud chatter explodes from another group, boisterous and full of energy. The maid snaps her attention to them and congratulates the whole 1,000 for their promotion to Deer Inc. Their leader, a spiky-haired young man, just laughs it away, insisting it was nothing. With a sly grin, he leans in and says they've been grinding just as hard ever since they joined the Sacred Guild. He quickly tells them it wasn't just his effort, it was their whole party's grind paying off. Then he introduces his crew, the Stoicua and Tenna, the cheerful fighter who brings it in combat. Even with pride blazing in him, Lauren, the leader, suddenly snaps out loud, utterly baffled. Sure, he admits he got lucky to be accepted into the sacred place, but why did they pair him with a young girl the moment he joined? His outburst sparks a whole storm of reactions. Tennessee looks worried, Matt grumbles that he's way too loud, Koa reminds him that everyone looks up to Sasha, and Lauren fires back that it's only natural for him to be with Sasha. He clenches his fist, eyes blazing with pure determination, and swears this is his shot, his ticket to blast straight up to S-Ray. His fiery declaration snaps off mid-breath when Kua lunges in, yanking him back and hissing that he needs to stop shouting like that. Just then the maid's voice slices through the chaos, telling Heist he looks like he's been through hell, so the 1,000 party spins around, and Lauren whips her head back in shock, demanding who Sacred Heist even is and how he could possibly be gunning for S-Rain. He shoves back hard against Heist's retreat, raising this huge, freaky-looking weapon, and when Lauren says it's cursed, stuffed with the last owner's soul, he tries to pass it off like a gift, but Heist isn't buying it, telling him to keep it, and Lauren just stares back with this grin so wide it looks downright manic. Undeterred, Lauren slams the grotesque, severed monster head forward and roars that it's a rare elven ingredient, while Kua, horrified, watches as he shouts that the Heist has finally arrived. While the Lawrence party reels in shock and embarrassment, King Barbaros' voice slices through the chaos. He declares that the royal family is now confirming that same ingredient is tied to a 30 million gold S-rank quest. The story slides into a massive grand hall. King Barbaros, surrounded by his kids and advisors, turns to an unseen crowd and bluntly announces he's done with all the formalities. He's going straight to the point. Then the big twist hits. His audience isn't some random crowd at all. It's the realm's heaviest hitters. Chaos, the Judgment Tribe's leader. Mamacha, the S-rank adventurer called Blood Battle. And Jer Basin, ruler of the barbarian tribe. The king kicks off his briefing, and with fresh investigations, he reveals it. B-rank monsters and up are reproducing at a terrifying, uncontrollable pace. The assembly is happening right in the Supreme Hell floor, near the capital, the same place the heist mastermind scouted before, and Sasha, Reynolds, and Philip from his party are all packed in there with him. Among the summoned heroes, you've got the Sacred Guild's core squad, Heis, the Beast Tamer, Sasha, and the White Heavenly Knight, plus their boss, Guildmaster Geist, the King of the Iron Fist. With a grim stare, King Barbaros slaps a name on the horror, Beast Stampede, and the moment he announces it, the warriors' faces twist with shock, disbelief, and sharp fear. This Beast Stampede is what happens when monsters multiply out of control. Then suddenly they need more space, so they churn outward and turn their old home into a deadly, lifeless wasteland where nothing else can survive. His Majesty kept going, laying out every brutal detail of the crisis, how the storm cannon, a thing that's only supposed to exist on the 60th floor, had suddenly appeared on the 10th. Then he snapped into action, ordering Guildmaster Geist to handle it and giving him the green light to open the dungeon to everyone. His advisor Bonnet bowed hard as if to say, understood. That was just the first sign. Inside the dungeon, the natural order collapsed, its territory shrinking until the monsters got desperate and poured out of the lower floors, crawling up to the upper levels to claim whatever land they could. Those monsters weren't just wandering around, they marched like they had a mission, zeroing in on the royal capital itself if the guild's numbers were right. Guildmaster Geist snapped into alarm, because the sheer horde crushing the streets dragged him straight back to that same nightmare the capital survived 30 years ago. The danger was enormous, so big it made my stomach drop, because even for a mid-level dungeon, the stampede was packing a horrifying 20,000 creatures. The warning history wasn't promising. When the final stampede finally died down, 3 towns and 7 full villages had been wiped clean off the map. Rage tightened his face as the past came crashing down on him. This was the 7th stampede, spawned again from the Supreme Hell floor, and even he couldn't have predicted it would happen like this. So now there's only one move. They have to stand together. Prince Cress brushed it off with a cold stare. Mama Cha let out a furious sigh and grumbled that this whole mess was just fear dressed up, but the king zeroed in and turned straight to Guildmaster Geist. Then he barked his orders. Geist was told to rush to every adventure guild and beg for help from the neighboring nations, while Bonnet was ordered to whip the royal army into motion with zero delay. Both men snapped into action without a single second of doubt. With his orders locked in, he shot up, slammed his palm on the table, and corrected himself. This wasn't just chaos, it was an unprecedented crisis. Then he leaned in and declared it to their faces. The kingdom's very survival now sat on everyone in that room. His eyes tore across the gathered leaders, and in his face you could see grim resolve braided with quiet faith. Then he slammed his words down. I'm counting on every one of you, his voice booming with the full weight of his authority and hope. After the royal decree hit, Heist just stood there in stunned silence, his left eye now hidden under a fresh bandage and an eye patch, while Sasha stared at him with pure, gripping worry. While the other leaders bickered, the burly Jeribson slammed home the truth. This never-before threat meant every clan had to unite and train side by side, and Mama Cha shot back that the promised rewards were just as unprecedented. Sasha then hit them with a wild, bold plan: ditch a defensive war, storm straight into the dungeon, drop to the deepest floor, and crush the final boss to stop the stampede at the source, and that sheer audacity stunned Piazzala into silence. Elsewhere, Chaos tried to talk Heist down, grilling him over how he'd just been shoved into S rank. Then he snapped that Heist's blessing skill was worthless in the dungeon and offered a better way to use it, but Heist only stood there, clutched a paper document, and stormed out, leaving Chaos to shout after him. He froze at the doorway, shoulders to the room, and snapped out his answer: I'm sorry, but I refuse. His refusal detonated rage across the other leaders. Jeribson spat curses at his arrogance, and Piazzala sneered, saying that attitude like that always gets you killed sooner or later. The moment the message hit the throne, King Barbaros cracked into wild laughter, and Princess Muin's face twisted with obvious irritation as the king boomed that this defiant spirit was exactly what use was all about. Sasha couldn't buy into it, staring hard at where Heist had vanished, her face twisted with pure disbelief as she tried to wrap her mind around why he'd make that move. 10 days flew by, and across the whole kingdom, newspapers blasted the grim news, plastered with maps that traced the beast stampede's relentless rampage. As the crisis swallowed everything, the Merchants Guild went public and slammed the brakes on every commission and mission, indefinitely. Just like everyone guessed, the massive upheaval was set to kick off within the next few days. As the danger closed in, King Barbaros stormed onto the castle balcony before his gathered knights, roaring out orders that shook the air. His words barely slowed the panic rolling through the streets, and across the land, terrified civilians grabbed whatever they could and fled. No time left, just a desperate stampede out of their homes. The city streets erupted into chaos, and people sprinted for their lives as Jerobson and the other seasoned adventurers stood their ground, their faces set in grim focus while they watched the evacuation spiral into frantic panic. As the scene played out, King Barbaros wore weary resolve like armor, while Princess Muin stood beside him, eyes burning with worry for their people. Elsewhere, Sasha stared straight at the horizon, determination and nerves wrestling in her eyes as the fight ahead loomed closer. Home, the beast stampede is about to explode. While the whole kingdom braced for disaster, Heiss slipped into a quiet corner of the city and settled a bill with an elderly shopkeeper, then grilled the old man, demanding to know why he wasn't running to another town. The shopkeeper leaned in and told everyone his dream had always been to run his business right here, and that he'd actually made it happen. Then, right as he finished, a deafening roar outside tore through the air, rattling the building like it was about to crumble. Then he lifted a framed photo of his family, his wife, his smiling son, and said he felt lucky because at least his wife and kid weren't stuck at home. His voice, heavy with dead-end resignation, rolled across the barren wasteland as he warned them that raging horde was coming, and when it finished, not a single bone would be left for a real burial. Tears spilled into his eyes as the old man confessed that his home, his family, and his hard-earned name were all that stood between him and total ruin. Then he said the inn was the last scrap of his family's legacy, slammed a book shut on the counter with a quiet thud, and rebolted his choice. Protect his dream and protect his son. Heiss sat in dead silence, letting the heartfelt words hit his chest, while his dark hair and fresh eye patch kept his real expression locked away. Then she snapped her gaze to the counter, clink, 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 wiping out the quiet. He hurriedly told the startled shopkeeper that the coins paid for his room that night and for breakfast the next morning. Up on the city's brutal outer wall, the truth finally hit. Ominous horns blared as the threat was counted. About 70,000 beasts were closing in. On the battlements, the guild master guys roared a number so massive it shook the stone, rallying the defenders to swear their blades to their king and their people. And right beside him, Sasha's voice sliced straight through the panic as she declared, "I'm your shield, your sword. Unbreakable." Her defiant cry got cut off instantly when Scout's panicked report hit. He'd misread it. The real number was 100,000, and Jays, Sasha, and every defender on the wall froze in pure stunned disbelief. As the despair began to settle over the ramparts, Heiss stepped out onto the empty city streets, his long coat snapping in the wind as he marched with full intention, eyes locked ahead, ready to take on the impossible tide all by himself. As that grotesque, goblin-like horde surges toward them, he refuses to budge, staring them down, then materializes a blazing four-barreled weapon, hefts it to his shoulder, and opens his sights while a monster screeches, "We've arrived." He fires off, and 3 massive projectiles tear through the sky like missiles, then slam into the horde and explode in a brutal wall of fire, blasting the front lines while he starts summoning his next round of ordnance. With a roar of sheer effort, the missile launcher rips out of sight, and an enormous multi-barreled rotary cannon slams into place. Power surges through him as he braces to fire again. He unleashes a jaw-dropping blaze. Cannons roar as they spit blazing projectiles, mowing through the monstrous ranks in a violent storm, shredding the creatures into a chaotic spray of gore while their screams get swallowed by the weapon's thunder. Reynolds squints at the distance and blurts out how unreal the sight is, while Sasha gapes in shock, mumbling that this crushing power has to be Heist's blessing. Then, somewhere else, a commander snaps orders and the archers unleash, sending a storm of arrows that plunges the sky into darkness. Right in front of Sasha, the horned demon crane snaps into existence, cackling like a lunatic. Then it spits insults, calls her a bitch, and taunts her that her party will get dragged into the bloody celebration he's already plotting. Then his eyes snap back to the Heists, on top of the non-stop assault, and even the crane squints, caught off guard like, what kind of weapon could cause all this? While he realizes the whole battle has turned into a one-man spectacle. He fixes his gaze on that distant warrior, contempt snaps into place across his face, and he spits a curse under his breath about the brat. Meanwhile, Reynolds steps in and takes command, snapping orders to the vanguard to surge ahead. He's betting everything on them as Sasha, Robin, the armored warrior, and Philip gear up to crash straight into the chaos. Robin unleashes a ferocious roar and slams her massive weapon down in a brutal arc, flattening a goblin into a bloody mess on the ground. She clenches her jaw, fires up her non-gigantification ability, and tells her comrades, "Hang in there with me." The moment it hits, that hulking one-eyed beast explodes with a deafening roar. Then she barrels into the chaos, sweeping her blade in a lightning arc through the monstrous tide. On another battlefield, Jarbison slams his weapon into the ground and detonates an earthquake power, while Reynolds stays cool as he clicks his poison ability on, smirking as he watches the squirming creatures twist, absolutely disgusting. His observation gets ripped away by a crushing impact that shatters the earth. Then, as the dust finally drifts, Demon Crane stands over him, blazing with a question: "Who are you?" Reynolds freezes on the spot, and Crane is already clocking how fast he managed to retrieve. He smirks at Reynolds the second he clocks him as the same guy from Sasha's reports, and the demon leans in, demanding to know whether Reynolds knows Sasha. Crane doesn't wait for an answer. He snaps, asks what Reynolds wants, and then straight up says he'll erase him, calling Reynolds out as trash for forgetting that Sasha is his superior officer as he brings in Reynolds and Iser. That insult hits like a punch to the gut. Reynolds erupts with a furious roar and lunges ahead, sword flashing straight for the demon. The demon vanishes, then in the blink of an eye, Crane is suddenly behind him, completely unscathed, while an explosion blasts the forest way back behind them. Sasha screams, warning Reynolds that the demon has resurfaced. Sasha's warning gets swallowed the instant a new, terrifying threat crashes in. An enormous horde of monsters surges over the ridge like a living flood, snarling and relentless. Sasha's eyes go wide as the truth hits her. They're in deep trouble now. Reynolds screams for everyone to look. Then the ground rips itself apart, trembling, cracking, roaring open, until a colossal armored monster, a living mountain of jagged rock, erupts from the earth like a nightmare, screaming so loud it shakes your bones. Spotting the new behemoth, Reynolds panics and yells Sasha's name with everything he's got. He watched as the colossal rock monster, pure earth and rage, crushed the ground to pieces right in front of him with terrifying power. The beast unleashed a thunderous roar that slammed through the battlefield, and with the chaos exploding, and goblins swarming everywhere, Reynolds panicked and shouted Sasha's name. When Sasha heard his cry, she snapped her head toward him, eyes locked and unshaken. She told him they'd deal with the giant and that he'd better stay out of the heist and let her handle it, promising it would all be fine. And she spun around, marched straight for the goblin line, and screamed for them to fall back as she readied herself to clash with the enemy. Far off, the demon Crane just watched it all play out, smirking like it found the whole thing entertaining. Crane's grin died the second a figure, Heiss, popped into existence in front of him, and he even wondered if the guy had been asleep. Then, without warning, a storm of tiny cylindrical projectiles slammed down, leaving Heiss reeling. The demon laughed at him, sneering that his projection technique was about as unique as water in the outside world. Crane hovered in the air with a smug grin as he watched the projectiles streak past, only for the guy to scramble out of the way at the last second, and then Crane snapped his fingers to unleash the attack. The projectiles ripped into a brutal explosion, swallowing the whole area in fire and smoke. Crane even chuckled about the insane magic he unleashed, yet when the haze finally cleared, the heist was still standing strong, and Crane's eyes never left the demon as it snapped that Crane was the real opponent. Fresh in a brand new set of brutal dark armor, he tore forward at impossible speed, slipping through yet another blast. Crane couldn't believe the raw magic, but wondered if Heiss could actually land a solid hit. Then Heiss struck, kicking up a cloud of dust, only for the demon to keep raining destruction from above, demanding to know what move he'd make next. He knew one thing: if he wasn't quick enough, it was over for him. Then a sharp realization hit. If he could break the projectile flow, the whole attack would stop. So when the next wave slammed in, he just planted his hand on the ground, and the incoming shots exploded into harmless shards of light. Sasha's voice burst in from behind him, and when her hand landed on his shoulder, calm flooded his chest. She told him to stay steady because she was right there, then pushed, "Let's hit them again together." Her words wiped the tension clean. His face lit up with a confident grin as his gauntlet started to glow, power surging in his hand for their perfectly timed strike. He swings a massive double-barreled gun up toward the demon, eyes bulging with disbelief, and blurts the question: "How is this even happening?" He demands to know what kind of trick lets Heist pull off power like that while his own magic is still active. He yanks the trigger, and Sasha beside him pours her brilliant, swirling energy straight into the blast. Then they hit the gas together, unleashing a monstrous spiraling vortex that swallows Crane whole. The demon bellows in disbelief, his face twisted in shock and pure humiliation, because he can't wrap his mind around his own terrifying magic snapping back and crushing him, until the blast's energy finally dies down and his body starts to waver. A crushing silence blankets the wreckage-strewn battlefield, splintered earth, scattered debris, and only Heisen's Sasha standing there, alone in the middle of total destruction. Just like that, the calm gets shattered by a cheerful voice. Piazzala steps in, grinning like nothing can rattle her, and calmly thanks Heis for the help, then winks and jokes that afternoon tea would be the perfect reward. Before he can even answer, his face snaps into total shock. His head whips around as he blurts out Sasha's name, pure alarm in his voice, and Piazzala gets startled by the panic that hits him like a blast. Her cry called to him, pulling at his heart, while somewhere else Sasha staggered, panting hard, her face smeared with blood and grime. At her feet, the colossal rock monster's giant stone body split apart, cracked, and crumbled into dust, completely destroyed. A panic alert rips across the battlefield, an order for every soldier and adventurer out there. The SS Plus ranked Demon Emperor, a demon beast, has just arrived. The colossal rock-born monster bellows with a gut-shaking roar as the command drops, and every warrior locks in and fights with everything they've got. With the threat breathing down their necks, Sasha rockets forward and leaps high into the air, then slams her sword down on the monster's head with everything she's got. The blade hits with a thunderous clang, scraping nothing from that rocky hide, and the shockwave blasts outward while Piazzala yells out in alarm. She gets slammed backward by the recoil, fury snapping across her face when she realizes that creature's shell won't crack, not even a little. She stumbles through the air, scrambling to land right, and Reynolds yells her name, panic and concern flooding his voice. The second Sasha lets her guard slip, everything pounces on her, because the Demon Emperor's arrival has already plunged the whole area into chaos, and from the dark woods, a horde of goblins floods the battlefield, trapping her with no way out. Sasha's surrounded, and one of them lunges in so fast it rips a scream straight from her mouth. When she crashes straight into danger, Rental slams through the goblins like a storm, screaming curses at every wretched beast in his way. He fights tooth and nail to reach her, but Sasha is already buckling to her knees, drained and buried under the monster tide. He roars her name again as the goblin barrels in on her helpless body, claws ready to strike, then asterisk wham. Its head suddenly bursts open in a black spray of ichor, cut down by something nobody can see. That short-lived calm dies instantly as the giant demon emperor starts sucking in blinding light through its gaping maw. Reynolds clutches a glowing magical item and realizes, too late, how doomed this is. He scrambles to shout for Sasha to run, but he's trapped by his own fight, miles out of reach. He can already feel it. He won't reach her in time. With a deafening roar, the monster unleashes a raging wave of destruction. Its beam rips through the earth, scorching everything it touches to ash. Reynolds can do nothing but yell Sasha's name, watching the blast swallow the spot she stood. And as the end closes in, Sasha stares straight at the annihilation and realizes, this is it. Out of the smoke and choking dust, a battered figure steps into view above Sasha's fallen body. This is the heist. But it's him, transformed in bruises and rage, draped in a dark, flowing coat and an eye patch over his right eye, and Sasha looks up in shock as she whispers his name. He stays stone still, facing away from her, like an unbreakable wall after barely stopping the worst of it. Scorched ground and shattered rock spread around them like the blast already won, but somehow he snatched that disaster out of the air. Sasha just drops to the spot, stunned, staring at the savior she never saw coming. He pulled Sasha into his arms as she slumped against him, her voice shaking, half relief, half fury, demanding answers, sobbing that she never once asked him to die for her. Panting and battered, he just shot back that it was pure instinct. From the ground where he lay battered, Reynolds stared at them, and something clicked in his eyes. He finally got it. Their bond had always been leading to the same dream, to become strong adventurers. Sasha's hard stare melted into something gentler as she looked at Heis. He kept going, admitting that even if she still had a long road ahead, he could feel it. She just wanted the best for him. And then he said it outright. It was her that pushed him, the reason he refused to stop and kept driving forward. Then his eyes snapped to the colossal monster stalking the horizon, and he told Sasha, "Leave the giant turtle to me," as the thing rumbled like doom. A memory slammed into Sasha's head, back when she was younger, and she couldn't bring herself to kill even one trembling slime. Heis had stood right there, pushing her to just do it, to just cut. His encouraging smile, telling her she could do it, flashed through her mind, and the shock of his old faith versus his desperate plea for her to run lit a fuse in her chest. She clenched her fist, thanked him, and swore she'd fight. With a blinding flash, Sasha spun and slashed. Then a roaring burst of energy ripped through the goblins, wiping the whole horde out in seconds. Reynolds froze, staring in stunned disbelief, begging the question. Where in the world did that kind of power come from? Her golden sword pulsed with blazing light, and Sasha remembered Jer Basin's promise, true time, where your buried power finally breaks free. He'd seen it all along. Her strength was being choked off. Now with fire in her eyes, Sasha vowed that Highbulk was protected, starting now. Rage surged from the display as the colossal monster tore into the world with a deafening roar, slammed its massive head into the earth, blasted a heavenly Fang attack, and cracked the ground open with a thunderous boom. Sasha's unstoppable advance crashed into a defiant roar, and as power surged through her, she charged ahead, shouting that she was both an unbreakable shield and an indomitable sword. Her thunderous cry tore through the battlefield's fog, snapping everyone out of that hazy, heist-silenced unconsciousness. A sudden jolt hit and his eyes flew open, only to find himself sprawled on a bed with his face bandaged, blinking at the ceiling like, "Wait, am I in an inn?" Then a woman's voice nearby snapped the truth into place. He really was a guest. He snapped his head around and saw Priscilla, grinning and calling out a cheerful good morning, and he could only murmur her name, asking how she'd ended up there. She laughed that the battle was already over and that she'd patched him up with first aid, then calmly declared her spiritual power was more than enough to handle it. But his first thought wasn't for himself. He shoved himself upright and blurted out if Sasha was okay, right as Piazzala stormed into the room. His question slammed into a sudden, heavy silence while the two elves traded nervous looks. Persia snapped the silence by blurting out an excuse about grabbing water, then bolted from the room with Piazzala, leaving Heis alone, and that dread started swelling fast. Moments later, Piazzala's voice rang from the window. She asked how bad his injuries were, insisting they looked painful but not life-threatening. Heist's only earned him a barely there nod. Her voice suddenly dropped into a somber hush as she fought back tears and offered a real, heartfelt apology. She tried to insist. Sasha stepped into the battle by choice. Nobody forced her. And as she said it, Sasha's awakened form flared through Heist's mind. Piazzala waved off apologies, but her words faded, and the real verdict of the battle stayed buried. He forced a shaky smile and told Pricea he'd finally made it to the awakening point, then blurted out that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't a burden on them anymore, only for Pricea to dodge his eyes, face heavy, and quietly say his name. Her head snapped up, desperation blazing in her eyes, and she didn't waste a second. She admitted how heavy the request was, then looked him straight in the eye and asked if he'd go back to the sacred party with her, one more time. Before Pricea could even answer, Piazzala yanked the door wide open and blasted her voice across the room, saying Heis was hers and commanding him not to leave, leaving Pricea frozen in stunned silence. A sudden clash threw Heis into total confusion, and just when he couldn't even process it, Priscilla snapped back, insisting Heis was part of her sacred party, only for Piazzala to hit her with a razor-sharp, crackling glare. He was in full mental chaos, wondering why this whole mess even mattered when he'd always been a solo act, and he couldn't even understand how their fight turned so possessive. The argument exploded when Piazzala smirked and kept needling Pricea, grilling her about her bond with Heis like she already owned the answer, utterly unshakable. Then she boldly announced that she and Heis would be companions for life, and Persea's face instantly twisted with frustration. A brutal crash of noise outside shattered their bickering, and still trapped in his bed, Heis snapped his head toward it, wondering what kind of trouble could make that much noise. He hauled himself up, slid over to the window, and leaned out to investigate, staring into the night like it might hold answers, only to realize, quietly, that maybe this mess wasn't as hopeless as it felt. The noise clicked into place. Pricea and Piazzala were right below, craning up and shouting, demanding he pick them or Sasha. Heis was totally done with it. He barked back that he'd already made himself clear. He was a solo player. 6 months later, the city finally snaps back into motion, streets buzzing again, alive with fresh energy and non-stop movement. At the sacred Guild Hall, Sasha leaps in to greet a brand new party, 1,000, only for them to crane their heads up at her as their leader trips over his words, insisting they've finally arrived, while Sasha keeps apologizing for all the trouble they've caused. She slaps a brand new quest poster into their hands, an ominous C-rank commission asking them to wipe out an Orge Lord, and the party's spiky-haired leader jerks back in pure shock. Sasha tells everyone that 1,000 is now a C-rank party, so she thinks it's time to level up with something tougher. Then she asks, "Can you handle it?" Lauren snaps his fist shut with raw determination, promises they've got this, and begs them to trust him. That confidence lasted about as long as a spark. Then in a forced clearing, the party gets crushed fast, boxed in by 3 hulking orcs at once, and Lauren watches, gasping, as she realizes this is about to go bad. His party's falling apart, injured bodies everywhere, his people scattered, and still he clenches his teeth, forcing himself to fight on, even as a massive orge barrels toward him, and dread crashes in as he realizes this is it. In that last desperate heartbeat, a flood of dark power detonates forward and wipes out the charging monster and all its friends in an instant, vapor and ash swirling through the air. Through the chaos, Heis remains completely untouched, while Lauren freezes on the spot, eyes wide, shouting his name in stunned disbelief. He whips around to the battered adventurers, checks if everyone's okay, and clocks Sasha standing there. Then the members of 1,000 surge toward him, sobbing tears of relief and thanking him again and again for saving their lives. Relief hits them like a wave, and one of the party stares at the fallen orcs, then blurts out in awe that for Heist to wipe out 3 of them in one instant, he has to be S-Ray. That realization lights a fire in Lauren. She blurts out the rumor that Heist is the strongest in the world since he's S-rank, then jumps straight to the question, would Heist reveal what fuels his power? And her teammates, just as hungry for answers, echo it back immediately. He calmly drops his ultimate goal, conquer the 6 supreme dungeons, and the 1,000 party members just freeze, staring in pure shock as they blurt the legendary name over and over like they can't believe it. These 6 places are famous worldwide as the most brutal dungeons that have ever existed, starting with Pyloramen's Great Salt Lake, where Delmadrome's twisted ecosystem fights back, then the Earth Dragon's Labyrinth, and finally a ruined, sprawling cityscape that looks like it's been screaming for centuries. And then there are the other legendary spots, the disorienting Forest of Confusion, the Tower of the 7 Sages, Grenobstar, which showed up in history exactly once, the demon-haunted mountains of Necrophantasia, and the mythical Garden of God, a place people swear exists only in the oldest legends. He breaks it down for the party. Out of all these places, only 2 are real, the Great Salt Lake in the Frizz region and a dungeon buried in the Dazia Desert. Then he drops a brutal warning. Nobody who's gone into either one has ever come back, and because he's got 0 official approval from any high command, he's left staring at the terrifying choice. So which one does he dare to challenge first? As he talks, the members of Thousand Gaze stare back at him with eyes blazing in awe, and he quickly realizes he can't spill that he's on a commission yet. So for now, he decides to just play it cool and act like he's simply another adventurer. His unstoppable ambition lights a spark in them, and Lauren and Tenna practically blur over to ask, "Can we come with you?" They fumble apologies, calling themselves a burden, but the truth is they're dying for more of his stories, so the whole party begs to tag along on his journey. Right as he starts to speak, the whole scene whips into a massive throne room. When the doors crash open, King Barbaros steps forward and greets Heist. Heist drops to one knee, blazes an apology for running late, and there's the 1,000-strong party sitting nearby at their banquet table, staring in total confusion. King Barbaros cuts through it all, shuts down the small talk, and tells him he wants the truth, straight to the point. The king rips out a royal decree and orders Heist to take over one of the 6 supreme dungeons, Delmadrome in the Desire region, leaving Heist reeling for a beat from the sheer shock of it. His mind fires off 1,000 alarms at once, because there's no time to breathe now. He's got to dive into another supreme dungeon this fast. Sensing Heist's hesitation, the king steps in and lays out his logic. After watching Heist absolutely crush it during that recent stampede, he's certain Heist has what it takes to go toe-to-toe with Delmadron. He stood face-to-face with King Barbaros, who leaned in and pressed the question straight on him: would he accept the challenge? Without a second thought, he dropped to his knees, slamming his armored fist onto the floor, and he'd follow that command with a relentless, unshakable resolve with it. Once the command was accepted, the king snapped his eyes to a giant carved stone tablet, then ordered Heist to hunt down the Desire Adventurers Guild for exact dungeon intel, because Balgon surely had every detail. The king pressed on, saying he'd already drafted a letter of introduction and was praying for a good report. Then Bonnet stepped up, holding it out, and Heist took it with a firm nod, making it clear he understood. Once his business was done, the Heister spun on his heels and bolted out of the throne room. Then the heavy Cully's gate crashed shut behind him, locking in his brand new mission. But the moment he stepped out, Piazzala and Sasha were right there, Piazzala bursting in with a bright, cheerful flourish, saying she'd heard he was gearing up to head to Desire to hunt a legendary dungeon, while Sasha just studied him and grinned. "Of course it's you." He stormed right past them, barking a warning not to chase him this time, because he already knew that spot was pure danger, and this time he planned to face it solo. She shouted to him to calm down, and with a bright, fearless smile Piazzala promised, "Don't worry, I'm not going with it." She stepped in and quietly hooked her hand through his arm, telling him that even though she just climbed to a new rank, her power right now would only slow him down. Then she met his eyes and ordered him to push on ahead. With a sharp release of her arm, Piazzala dropped the next bombshell. She'd heard Sasha's party was gearing up too, ready to take on the mighty supreme dungeon, Pyloramen's. As Heist barrels out through the city gates, Piazzala yells his name and slams on the brakes. He spins around, and she offers her thanks. He's stunned by her gratitude, then her bright smile sweeps in as she begs him to spill every detail of his journey when he returns, and after a beat of shock, he quietly agrees. Her face softens as she invites him to spill his stories, just the 2 of them, sharing tea together. They traded farewell words, then the 2 adventurers kicked off their journey, praying the road ahead would stay safe. Their journey slingshots them straight into the loud, bustling desert kingdom of Pisia, a city pressed right up against a brutal mountain range, and before the dust even settles, they hurry to the local adventurers guild. Inside, Piazzala hands the guild official the King of Hybulk's letter of introduction and declares they've come to meet Balgon and have the guild confirm it's real. While she deals with the formalities, Heist just waits in tense silence, fist clenched in his gauntlet, replaying the letter in his head, the beast ride disaster, and all the weapons he's gathered since. If this goes smooth, he won't have anything to fear. Before Heist can even finish his thoughts, a hulking, bearded giant drops into his space and growls, his voice shaking the air, asking if Heist is the one trying to conquer Delmadrone. Stunned, Heist jerks his gaze up and blurts that he's bald gone, and the man booms back, yes. Heist says the king hired him to take down the dungeon and demands answers, so Balgon snaps back instantly, roaring that Ice has no right here and to get lost, then seethes at the idea of listening to some brat and orders him to stay upstairs and not dare step into his place. Balgon keeps spitting poison, sneering that King Barbaros would dare send an S-rank appraiser tied to the beast riot to check out Delmadrome, until his fury boils over. Then Piazzala steps in with a calm, placid smile and tells Balgon, right to his face, to get himself under control. Her desperate bid for peace got obliterated the moment the Heist erupted. Sudden, mocking laughter sliced through the air as he sneered at the four great clans' title, spitting that the whole idea of music was nonsense. Then he leaned straight into the big guy's face and demanded he listen up. No jokes, no excuses. With a razor grin, he painted Hisicus Balgana as nothing but a trembling old man bolting from some mystery enemy, and that had a horrified Piazzala staring like, "What are you even doing?" The young adventurer kept firing off insults, brushing Balgon aside and calling anyone like him nothing but pitiful cowards. Once his tirade was done, the two-knife menace slid a dark visor over his eyes, whipped his back to the furious guy, and calmly told the shopkeeper to follow his own advice, then go home. As he stormed away, Piazzala's face collapsed into pure despair, because right then, she realized that any shot at a peaceful ending was completely dead. Before she could even blink, Bal let out a rage roar and spat that Heist was just a little brat. Then Heist launched off the balcony in an instant, and a brutal explosion tore through behind him, blasting the whole structure apart as he crashed down. With a sharp grunt, the Heist twist hurled him through the air, just barely slipping past a crushing strike that obliterated the stone at his feet. The big, bearded man, ball missing, just smirked, clearly impressed the boy dodged it. He doesn't let the boy breathe. He hauls that massive weapon up high. "Try dodging this," he roars, and with a thunderous boom, the bellows-shaking ball slams the hammer down with brutal force. The second the weapon slams in, the ground explodes upward. Then the Heist boy vaults over Balgon's head, riding the attacker's momentum straight into his escape, and from beneath it all, Balgon flashes a grin, clearly impressed by the kid's serious skill. He drops to a safe distance, then whips his head back, staring at that wall of destruction like it wants to erase the world, sweat sliding down his temple, and the shock hits him. The old man's power is way beyond what he ever expected. The shockwave keeps blasting outward, whipping up a maelstrom of dust and rock fragments until the air around the two fighters is completely choked. Ball dropped, he stunned. The weapon Heist just appeared out of nowhere, and he blazes, demanding to know if the shooter's actually planning to stop. But Heist only flashes a sharp grin, reveals the firearm, and fires off a furious volley of shots. To his shock, the bullets clanged off Balgon's gauntlets with zero effect, like they were just harmless sparks to him. The blacksmith didn't even flinch. Then Heist's stares froze as he realized the whole attack was pointless, because a tiny spherical object slipped from Balgon's hand and dropped. His opponent slams out a booming laugh, "Gotcha," and he just grins like this is hilarious, saying it's wild to see someone swinging a Navanaga weapon while the name hangs there, strange and completely unfamiliar. That word rips open a memory. He spots Ibis, her long hair streaming as she glances back, eyes sharp and curious, and asks him if he's her lover. He snapped back to reality when a heavy pat landed on his back, right after the ball was gone, and the blacksmith leaned in with a huge grin. "All right, so you know about Nabinaga, huh?" he asked, clocking that the boy definitely knew a little something. He smacked Heist's shoulder with a loud thud, burst out laughing as the name finally clicked in his mind, and even while the blacksmith knotted it into place, Heist just stood there in stunned silence. Heist, right. With the names locked in, he spun around, beckoned Heist to come with him, and promised to spin a story, inviting him to pull up a seat and listen. As the young man stomped along, his face twisted into irritation, because he couldn't understand why the blacksmith had swung at him with that kind of brutal force. Right as his thoughts started to spin, they slipped into a place that looked exactly like a guild hall, and then the blacksmith waved him toward the table and demanded once more that he sit down. Moments later, a thick, heavy slosh crashed into the wooden mugs, echoing through the room. Balgon slammed a mug down in front of Heist and launched into a story, saying he used to run with Nabinaga, which made Heist visibly freeze with shock, while the blacksmith kept going, revealing their crew also had Ibis of the Elves and the other clan masters. He told me that, at the start, they all belonged to one tight crew, marching under a single banner like one unstoppable team. He chuckled like that memory was a warm drink, flashing back to how Ibis, now striding with pure authority, used to shadow Nobunaga everywhere, with a younger, happy Ibis sticking close behind him in full adventure gear. His laughter died off and a heavier look settled in. Then he made it crystal clear, Nobunaga wasn't just some leader, he was a real friend, a comrade standing shoulder to shoulder. With that, he locks his eyes on Heist, voice dripping with seriousness, demanding answers as to why Heist would sneer at someone using a weapon identical to the one his beloved friend wielded. He stares stunned as Balgon blurts that he's not stopping him out of spite. Then the big guy jabs a thick, reinforced bucket, making it crystal clear. That's exactly why he stepped in. Balgon keeps going, unveiling a massive, pale, monstrous hide, and tells him it's the very thing he got the moment he stepped into this place. Then he bears his past, one horrific dungeon unlike anything beyond it, where every comrade he had got slaughtered, and the scars left behind won't ever fade. With a grim memory laid bare, the bald man's Heist plan hangs in the air. What he intends to do, no one can miss. The young guy stays locked in silence, jaw set, eyes hard. He doesn't even wait for my reply, like it's been ages. Then he drops the truth. 2 other young fighters have already climbed to the top, and Ibis, refusing to get left behind after the beast ampied, is now setting his sights on another monster of a dungeon. That reminder of his rivals lights a match in Heist, rage and hope burning bright. He declares it without a doubt, swearing he'll go and claw his way to become the strongest of them all. Balgon, with the laughter, hits him with a hearty roar and calls him a fool for ignoring his warnings after that bold declaration. As the laughter dies down, Balgon's smile drops into something cold and serious. Then he nods at the boy's grit, decides to back him up, and offers to share what he knows about the Delmadrome dungeon. He jerks the boy inside and tells him, sure, the Delmadrome looks like plain old ruins from the outside, but its monsters are monsters in name only, absolutely brutal. Then he leans in and warns, that peaceful look is a trap, and if you stroll in thinking it's just another dungeon, your own assumptions will get you killed. Right after that, he unfurls a massive scroll. Unrolling the scroll, the map spills out in full detail, and Balgon hits the brakes to warn everyone. Even if Heist slips inside, he'd better remember this dungeon isn't like the rest. It's packed with strange contraptions called iron boxes. The boy leans in, eyes locked on the map, asking if those sketches are the iron boxes, and Balgon nods, then drops a key detail. When he showed this to Nobunaga, his old comrade said they were almost identical to something from his own world. He took in the craftsman's words, and his mind snapped into gear, painting those eerie iron boxes, modern firearms and vehicles in his head, so close to the weapons he'd summoned himself. Why they showed up in the dungeon still didn't make sense, but he could feel it. There was a bigger link waiting to be revealed. He spun back to Balgon and demanded to know, was Nobunaga just as totally clueless as they were? Balgon shot back that his partner was just as clueless, too, especially with. And with that, Balgon said he'd spilled everything he knew. Then Heist's gaze slammed down onto his weapon master, Grimoire. He figured if he could smash this dungeon and the next big ones too, he'd finally awaken more of his hidden strength, and maybe track down answers about those mysterious artifacts scattered across the world. As the Heist plan hit Balgon's mind, his hand snapped into a tight fist. The craftsman confessed, choked with shame, that fresh information had blown the whole thing apart. Only now Balgon could feel how the lives of his fallen comrades were wasted, and Heist stared in shock at the raw emotion that erupted out of him. He stared at the map and finally felt the crushing weight of Balgon's past, and how that man had been shoved into risking everything just to claw his life back. Heist swore right then, the sacrifice of Balgon's comrades wouldn't be for nothing. With a fresh understanding burning in his chest, he squared up to the craftsman. Balgon, he started, then blurted an apology for calling him a coward, admitting he'd acted immature. Balgon just stared, completely thrown by the sudden turn. The big man gave a rough, low grunt, just enough to let him know he'd heard him. Then he told Heist to drop it, pointing out that at least the kid hadn't started by pretending to be some battle-worn veteran, and with that, Heist stepped back and offered a simple, heartfelt thank you. He started to turn and leave, and Heist shot back a confident grin, swearing he'd crack the great dungeon. Then just as he took his first step, Balgon barked, "Wait." Right when he opened his mouth to answer, the workshop's heavy door blasted inward, and a visitor's voice declared, loud and clear, that they'd arrived. Just as Heist and Balgon's talk hit its stride, the door slammed open and yanked the moment away. Heist spun around, his face tightening the second he saw the unexpected visitor. Before he can even clock who it is, a shadow whips by him in a blink, shooting deeper into the workshop. The newcomer halts right in front of the all-gone craftsman, and the big builder looks up from his work like he expected it. "Ah, so you've arrived," he asks, calm as ever, while the others hover behind him, staring at the intrusions, trying to figure out what just happened. With her hands on her hips, the pointed-eared powerhouse stands tall and chirps. "So you're saying this is the final S-rank adventure?" Then she fires off, and the name is Hijiri. Before he can even answer, Heist barrels in from behind and snarls, "Who are you?" And she just smiles, bright as ever. That's right. She whips around in a blur, crashing into Heist's personal space with shocking speed, then leans in so close she practically snarls the question right into his face. "You're Heist, aren't you?" She circles him, scanning him head to toe like she's judging every inch. Then she finally blinks and mutters, You look pretty strong," conceding with a stiff huff while she struggles to keep up with what's happening. Balgon barges into the tense moment, thrusting a letter in the air, then tells Heist that Barbaros's message said another S-rank adventure is heading their way for the expedition, and a stunned Heist can only blurt, "Why didn't anyone tell me?" The truth finally hits and Heist's face twists in pure shock. "So this is what it's about." He screams it out, while Hijiri just smirks with their eyes shut, flashing a peace sign like they totally planned it. He spins back to Balgon, flustered and insisting he knows nothing about any partner. Then Balgon stays perfectly calm and says, "No matter what, this is the mission I've been given," calling them a pair. Sweat dripped as the Heist guy shot a nervous glance back at the girl, praying he wasn't being set up for some sketchy deal, but Hijiri looked ready to snap, saying she wouldn't team up with a guy whose past was a total black box, so all he could do was offer a strained, awkward apology. Doubt still hangs in the air, so the energetic elf shoots her adventurer's card forward, rank stamped loud and clear, and declares with total confidence that she's a real, proper adventurer. Her proof hits him like a punch, and he just stands there, eyes wide, still trying to wrap his head around it as he blurts out he can't believe she's an S-rank. Then Balgon beside him cuts in, telling him to stop fighting it and accept what's real. He snaps his gaze upward as the elf beams and reaches out, introducing herself as Hijiri, and when the moment finally clicks, Heist answers with a proper formal introduction of his own. Hijiri, a bright-eyed young firecracker, grins at Heist and practically begs him to take care of her. Then she leans in close and brags about her own legend, asking if he's ever heard of the famous Hijiri Cursed Fist in Yulong, while the heavily bearded Balgon watches from nearby, eyeing everything. His face twists into something grim as he tells her point-blank that Zai and Oolong are both doomed to die, leaving Hijiri frozen in silence. Then he demands to know where Oolong is, remembering it as a brutal Western land where martial arts rule and war never truly stops. She snaps her confidence back into place, juts her chin, and loudly calls Oolong her beloved homeland, then waves off his dark dread, saying they'll settle it after they conquer the dungeon together. As she closes the distance, he recoils. He jerks back, rattled, demanding to know how this could even happen, and pushing that they have to face it together. No excuses, no backing down. But Hijiri just looks stunned at how fiercely he's fighting the idea. Meanwhile, inside the royal court, King Barbaros drops a jaw-dropping bombshell. He publicly declares he's going to leave his throne and personally team up with the adventure heists to conquer the great Delmadrome dungeon as a... When a courtier voices doubt, the king demands a straight answer, confirm it. And boom, Hijiri freezes, because is this the same heist tied to the infamous bee stampede? The name hits her like lightning, and her eyes blow wide with instant recognition. She whips around to face the king and makes a proper formal plea, begging for permission to join Heist's expedition. Then she lays it out hard. The mess those high-level adventurers caused has seriously hurt the war effort, and this is their shot to fix it. Angry voices scream in protest, knowing she could spark a disaster. Too late. Hijiri is already bolting down the path, shouting that she'll obey the royal order, and he's left counting on him too. Left behind, he turns and bam, King Barbaros stands right in front of him. The king leans in, eyes burning with intent, and in a low, unbreakable voice asks Heist if he's ever been wrong about someone, and there's no chance to wriggle out of it. A heavy hand clamps onto his shoulder, and the king's voice keeps rolling, saying it looks like Heist has truly caught his eye. Then he starts to speak his next move, trapping the young adventurer in a tight, tense corner. Right away, Hijiri slams a flag onto the little mound, and declares she'll become the strongest by beating every terrifying foe inside the great dungeon. Then she turns to the challenge with a no-nonsense duel that cuts off mid-sentence with a duel with her. Her eyes blaze with this wild, almost manic hunger as she corners him, demanding to know if he's really as strong as she's convinced he is, while he just stares back, grim and completely unreadable. He whips his back to her and cuts the whole challenge dead, reminding her, again, that he works alone, like there's nothing left for her to argue. As Hijiri starts to walk off, a huge, bearded gatekeeper waves him goodbye and thanks him for stopping by, but Hijiri can't let that slide, so he yells from behind, "Wait." The gatekeeper stares as the two of them walk out, quietly praying they make it through safe and sound. Later, inside a loud, buzzing tavern, Hai slams a big order on the table: 2 drinks, a massive steak, and a crazy pasta loaded with wild boar, squid ink, and a sharp sour sauce. As she scribbles his requests with non-stop focus, he adds crispy fried fish to the order, then whips around at Hijiri, who's trailed him to the table, and snaps, seething with clear annoyance, how long she plans to keep shadowing him. She shoots back instantly, swearing she'll stick with him until they smash the great dungeon, and once he finally relents, she pushes him into a fight, but when he glances aside, he clocks it. Her contest talk was just a cover to dodge the real thing. Her determination hardens the moment she declares she's staying by his side. Then she fires off a plan: let's take down this dungeon together, and after that, we finally settle our duel. She practically sparkles, thrilled with what she swears is the perfect answer, while beside her, Heist slumps forward, completely crushed by her non-stop drive, and right then a waitress rushes back to the table, apologizing for the holdup. Right in front of them, a massive feast sat waiting. Center stage was a huge steaming dish that blasted the air with mouthwatering smells, and Hajiri burst out with a delighted cry, saying it all looked absolutely divine. She didn't waste a second. She hauled up that heavy wooden mug, splashed ale everywhere, and grinned like a menace as she bellowed a toast to their brand new party, shouting the Heist name loud enough to shake the room. Her loud, happy energy hit a brick wall the moment Heist gave a dull, lifeless sip, totally unimpressed, like her big declaration fell flat, and all he managed was a tired, "Oh, really?" He set his mug down and flatly said he had no clue any party was even being planned. No memory, no rumor, nothing. But Hijiri just smiled like that wasn't an obstacle and pushed him to at least grab a drink with her. She shrugged off his protest and took a bite of her meal anyway, humming with satisfaction as the delicious flavor lit a fire in her, because something huge was coming next. Her mind snapped back to the goal, the Delmadrome Great Dungeon, and she laid it out like a warning: the highest-ranked S-class dungeon, its terrifying reputation hanging over that endless, dead wasteland. The moment dungeon rank got brought up, the Heist guy's face snapped cold. Then he shot back, dead serious, that S-class or not, death was handed out in these places like it was the entry fee. Hijiri nodded like she'd already seen the nightmare coming, and she admitted it. She's an S-class adventurer too, so she knew exactly how deadly this mission could get. Her cheerful smile snapped away, and in its place came iron resolve, eyes blazing wide as she declared she had to get her mind ready for what was coming. She leaned in, voice low and razor-sharp, and made it clear she had zero plans to die here, because she told that terrified Heist that she couldn't drop until she'd beaten him. She clamps her hand around his collar, grinning with a pulse of fear and sheer determination. She blurts out that she already mapped her plan. She'll beat everyone, get stronger, and one day rule as the most powerful person on Earth. Heist freezes, speechless, just stammering out questions, because he can't wrap his head around why she's locked onto that path so fiercely. Her words slam him back into his past, when his power couldn't be denied, and suddenly the beast riot turns into legend in Oolong, where he didn't just wipe out 1,000 demons, he crushed the entire demon race. Even after all that, a strange, quiet thought hits him out of nowhere. Somehow, the weight of that power feels almost light. Back in the tavern, he's stuck in his own head, while Hijiri takes a long swig from her mug, and then she snaps that he won't even entertain the idea of a competition. Apparently, he's always believed every adventurer chases the same dream, becoming the strongest of them all. She drops her gaze, fatigue flickering in her eyes, and admits under her breath that these competitions are nothing but a nuisance. Her sudden honesty hits him like a punch. He freezes, stares straight into her eyes, and blurts out what she wants, pushing to the heart of her ultimate goal as an adventurer. That one question yanks him into a rush of memories. He remembers begging to form a party with Sasha, and how that dream finally came true. But the moment the group kept expanding, the gap between what each of them could do only widened, and then Sasha's furious scream hits him again, accusing him of dragging everyone down, sharp as a knife. He clings to a past moment, her warm smile, her voice telling him to carve his own strength into his heart and chase the title of the strongest, until that memory gets shattered the second he sees her turn her back and walk away, leaving him stranded behind, visibly trembling from the impact. Hijiri cuts through his turmoil, leaning in close with real curiosity, and tells him any reason works. She just can't wait to hear his story, begging him to spill even a little. Her simple request, and boom, everything hits way harder than it should. Tears start pouring as she gasps for water, wrecked by emotion from a story he hasn't even finished telling yet, while the Heist just stands there, stunned and totally clueless. He cuts off the heavy conversation for good, because the mood for it is already dead. Instead, they dive straight into a roaring town square, where the air hums with haggling voices and coins clinking as crowds slip between market stalls. While everything's buzzing around them, Heist spots it. This has to be the road to the Delmadrome dungeon, and it feels nothing like a tourist trap. Hijiri, though, can't look away, yanking attention to a food stall as it tempts him with bargain-priced beef tongue skewers. The vendor takes their order and serves up the goods. She spins toward him and explains that this tourist spot is actually built over ancient ruins, then quickly adds that she's got work waiting for her here too. He demands what she means by that, and as the words leave his mouth, Hijiri's eyes snap wide with realization from right where they stand. They can march straight to the dungeon. Her idea ignites a competitive blaze in the room, and with a smug grin, she dares him to a race. First to hit the dungeon gets to be the leader. Heist just stares, stunned by how wildly childish her excitement is. Soon after they arrive, and right in front of them looms a massive arched gateway, carved straight into the mountain, its black entrance dripping with ancient power. Adri freezes, awestruck, while Heist narrows his eyes and names it instantly. The Delmadrome Dungeon.